How's it going, everyone? Welcome to another fun at-home table read. Tonight, we are tackling the unmade sequel script for Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. This was the original draft for Spider-Man 2. It's going to be a little bit different than what we got in the release version, but I cannot wait to see how this one's going to turn out. So let's have our cast introduce ourselves.
Hello, I am Mary, and I will be reading the action description.
Hello, I'm George, and I'll be Mr. Spider-Man.
I'm Logan. I'm Octavius.
Hi, I'm Anne. I'm Mary Jane.
Hi, I'm Jen. I'm going to be Aunt May and some other stuff.
I'm Curtis. I'm going to be Harry Osborn.
Hey, I'm Johnny. I'll be playing J. Jonah Jameson. That extra J is for Johnny.
I'm Rudy. And if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Connors and Edward Brock.
Yes, indeed.
I'm Travis, and I'm going to be playing Captain Stacy.
All right. Well, Mary, take us away.
Interior, Peter Parker's room day. The skyline of Manhattan seen through a window. The buildings blur as we pull focus to a complex pattern in the foreground. What is it? What else? A spider web up in the corner of the room where a window meets ceiling. Peter Parker voice comes over.
Now, where was I?
We move off the web down into the room, and first thing we come to is a bare foot sticking up in the air.
Actually, I have a better question. Who was I?
We're still moving down. Now, down the bare leg or up the leg as somebody is balanced upside down here.
I mean, way back when, before the spider bite, before the genetic transmutation and the secret identity and so forth and so on.
Still moving down and back, we see both legs now and a torso and an arm held out for balance. The other arm is gripping the back of the chair, a plain wooden desk chair, and Peter Parker, 20 years old, is balancing himself upside down on the back of that chair effortlessly. He's in the bathroom in a loft apartment in Manhattan.
By the way, if you're coming in late, could you maybe ask a friend to catch you up or something? Because my life is complicated.
Peter bends his arm and pushes off the chair, which tips up on its two back legs. Peter soars neatly up into the air, does a 180 and lands on one bare foot on the back of the chair, distributing his weight just enough towards the front to keep the chair balanced on its rear legs.
There's a funny thing I've noticed about growing up. You sort of end up who you were.
The chair legs start to slide and he leaps again, does a mid-air flip and lands on the wall behind him upside down. He clings there.
My problem is I don't remember much about who I was.
Another leap, and according to Newton, this one just might not be possible. From his upside down position, Peter pushes off the wall, does a back gainer with a 180 twist upwards and lands on the ceiling where, of course, he sticks.
Where I came from.
Peter releases himself from the ceiling and drops to the floor, lands on his hands, light as a cat.
Who I came from.
From here, it's your basic handspring, and he's flipped himself over, landing on his toes in the middle of the room. A gymnast finishing his routine. Ta-da!
Who I am.
From the perfectly developed 20-year-old physique of does two interior Aunt May's living room nights. There's a burst of laughter and a balled up piece of paper hits the picture. The photo changes slideshow style to a picture of the same kid, same glass, now 3. He's eating birthday cake, frosting smeared all over his face. More laughter, more objects thrown at the screen. Peter voiceover.
I ask you, is this any way to treat a superhero?
Pulling back, we see we're in a modest living room in a small house in Queens, Aunt May's house. Looking at slides and an old-fashioned screen that's set up on one side of the room. Peter's on the sofa, wedged in between Mary Jane Watson, also a couple years older, more woman than girl now. Living away from home has agreed with her. She's grown into her beauty. She's more confident and calmer. Aunt May is still a good time broad from way back. She and Mary Jane try to stifle their laughter.
No, go ahead, laugh it up, laugh it up. I'm here to amuse.
You're so cute.
Aunt May clicks the clicker and the slide changes again. We don't see the picture this time, but Aunt May and MJ sigh simultaneously and cock their heads in the same direction.
Aww.
Peter rolls his eyes. Mercifully, the doorbell rings.
Thank God.
The front door opens, revealing Harry Osborn, now 21, now dines at 21. Okay, redundant. He wears a beautifully cut business suit and severe expression. He seems more than just 2 years older. His adolescent moodiness has become a seriousness of purpose beyond his years.
Sorry I'm late. Work is killing me. You want to hear my imitation of an idiot? I can run the company. I'll run Oscorp. That is an idiot.
He shoves a wrapped gift into Peter's hand.
Happy birthday, buddy.
Harry, you didn't have to get me anything.
I know that's why I did.
Well, what is it?
I wouldn't do that if I were you. Well, you drooled over it long enough in the window at B&H and be ashamed to break it now.
The Leica. It was a fortune.
Okay, I'll take it back.
More gales of laughter from behind them.
Look at this one.
Peter sighs. On the screen is one of the nerdiest pictures of a 10-year-old you have ever seen.
At least there's no table near glasses together.
Click. Another picture. Same kid. Now there's tape. Back in the room, raucous laughter. Peter turns away, good-natured, pretending to be annoyed. Aunt May clicks again. And suddenly, all the laughter dies. Peter looks at his friends, confused. They're all staring at the screen somberly. He turns around. On the screen is a picture of a 6-year-old Peter standing between two adults in their mid-30s, whom we've never seen before. They're all on a beach, and the adults are bending down, and young Peter has his arms thrown around them, warm between the two suns on his sky. Peter walks in front of the screen, a silhouette, and draws closer to the image as if to touch it.
I haven't seen that one before.
It was in there.
Don't change it.
I wasn't going to, dear.
He draws closer to the screen.
I remember that day. It's Coney Island, I think. I had school, but Dad said it was too beautiful to be inside. Mom told me she called in and said they were too well to go to work. That's the last real thing I remember about them.
Close on, 21 candles on a birthday cake. The flames bend and flicker out. Cut to exterior Aunt May's house night. Later, nighttime. Peter walks out of the house with Harry, headed for Harry's car at the sidewalk. Peter's mood is somber, and Harry notices it. He puts an arm around his friend's shoulders.
Some pair, man. Grand total of 0 parents between us.
Thanks for coming, Harry, and for the camera. You shouldn't have.
I do a lot of things I shouldn't.
They reach a Ferrari parked at the curb. Harry starts to open the door, then stops. He shuts it, turns back to Harry with determination.
Who is he, Parker?
Huh?
It bothers me, eats away at me every single day. You're my best friend. You know what happened. You're practically there, but you still keep taking your pictures, sending them to the Bugle. Peter, you make your living off the man who killed my father.
You don't know it was Spider-Man. The police said...
I saw him standing over my father's body, his dead body. That's the image I live with every night. The last thing I see when I fall asleep and the first when I wake up. And my dreams? I don't ever want to tell you about my dreams. Spider-Man.
They never found the Green Goblin. It could have been him. That night was...
The Green Goblin did not kill my father, okay? It's ridiculous. Look, I've never brought this up because I was waiting for you to do the right thing, to come to me, but you haven't. So I'm going to ask you this question one time, and I'm never going to say a word again. I'm going to choose to believe you, Peter, no matter what you say. So look at me and do not lie. Do you know who Spider-Man really is?
Peter looks his best friend in the eye.
No.
Harry measures him for a long moment.
Good.
He gets in his car, slams the door, and starts it up.
Then I'll be the first to find out.
He pulls away fast. Peter looks after him. This is going nowhere good. And he hears the screen door slam on Aunt May's house, and he sees MJ leaving, heading next door.
Hey, MJ.
Right.
She keeps walking, arms folded tight against her chest. Peter hurries over, catches up to her in the driveway between their two houses.
What's the matter?
Nothing. I'm just tired.
You sure?
I just have an early audition.
Really? What is it?
It doesn't matter. I won't get it. I never get anything. I'm completely wrong for it.
What kind of part is it?
A girl.
Well, gee, I don't know. I've always thought you were pretty convincing as a girl.
Not convincing enough, I guess.
Peter looks away, doesn't know what to say. MJ sighs. There's no reaching Peter on that particular subject.
I'm sorry.
Oh, come on, I'm just teasing you. I met somebody, did I tell you that?
No, that's great. Who is it?
Oh, this guy Jeff, he's a sculptor and he comes into the diner for lunch all the time. You know that ask me about my pie button they make me wear? Well, he asked me about my pie.
I'm happy for you. Hey, how about if we take the train in together in the morning? Are you staying at your mom's tonight?
She casts a look over her shoulder.
Yeah, it's weird. I kind of like the old place now that, since he split.
So together.
Jeff's picking me up, but I'll see you soon. Happy birthday.
She stands on her tiptoes to give him a kiss. He goes to offer her his cheek, but she touches his chin lightly, diverts him to her lips. It's a soft, tender kiss, not too long, not too short. She pulls away from it, touches her lips together as if remembering his feel and taste.
Well, good night.
Good night, Spider-Man.
She walks towards her mother's house. Peter's eyes widen.
Very funny.
Is it?
But she keeps walking into the house, leaving him unsure if she really knows something or if she's just messing with him. His voiceover one last time.
See what I mean? Complicated.
Cut to interior Aunt May's kitchen night. Aunt May's hand slides a faded brown manila envelope across her kitchen table. It has just one handwritten word on the front. Peter. Peter, sitting across the table from her, looks up quizzically. Aunt May puts a hand to her mouth.
Who's this from?
She starts to answer, but no words come out. She takes a moment to compose herself, then answers his question simply.
Your parents, kiddo.
Peter is absolutely dumbfounded. Can't speak. He looks down at the envelope, back up at her, and she nods.
How?
They gave it to me a few weeks before the plane crash. They said if anything ever happened to them, I was to give it to you on the day that you turned 21.
Wow. Did they have a feeling?
That is a question I always wish I'd asked them.
Peter picks it up with shaking hands.
What's in it?
I don't know. It isn't my name on the front.
She gets up and gives him a kiss on the forehead.
It's a gift, Peter. A wonderful, unexpected gift. I'll be in the other room.
She leaves. Peter turns the envelope over, puts one finger under the flap, and tears it open. He reaches inside, pulls out a piece of paper with a few handwritten paragraphs on it. His eyes skim the paragraphs greedily. He smiles, wipes away a few tears. There's a photograph, paper clipped to the page, old and fading, a shot of his parents, one he's never seen before. He smiles, laughs, but the envelope isn't empty. There's something heavier in it that slides to one end. Peter furrows his brow and turns the envelope over, holds one hand underneath it, and a shiny silver key drops into his palm. Cut to exterior National Trust Bank Day. Close on the key, now held tightly between Peter's fingers, he strides briskly towards an enormous old bank building in Midtown. As he walks through the imposing steel gates, we hear the voice of a woman we've never heard before.
Dear Peter, if you're reading this letter, it means something has happened to your father and me. And though this is the last thing we've ever wished, a terrible weight must now come upon you.
Interior Bank Day. Peter follows the security guard across the lobby of the bank towards the massive vault doors. A different voice now, this one a man's.
You've been told that we were research scientists working for a privately held energy concern. This is not true. Our employer for the past 9 years has been the United States Department of Defense.
Interior vault area day. Peter follows the guard down an endless hallway lined with glittering gold fronts of safety deposit boxes. His mother again.
In that time, we've been working on a project so secret, we've never discussed it with anyone except for the third scientist on our team. As we near completion, your father and I have only just grasped the limitless force of the neogenic technology which our work explores. And we've decided that now In the midst of this Cold War, the world is not ready for its sheer power.
Interior deposit box alcove day. The guard runs his fingers down a row of boxes, comes to number 2626. He turns, holds his hand out for Peter's key. While Peter's father's voice goes on, Peter hands the guard his key. The guard slides his own key into the double lock box, turns them simultaneously, and slides the box from the wall.
Your mother and I removed the most vital piece of equipment, a device, our own construction called an image refractor, and placed it in a safety deposit box in the National Trust Bank. Without the refractor, our work will be impossible to complete.
Interior private viewing area day. The guard shows Peter into a secluded area for viewing of the contents. Peter slides the box onto the...
But you, Peter, are safely in the year 2004, where, God willing, the planet is more peaceful, rational place.
in front of it.
But you, Peter, are safely in the year 2004, where, God willing, the planet is a more peaceful, rational place. You, and you alone, are the person we trust to take our work to those who can use it for the good of mankind and not the destruction of it.
Shows what she knows. Peter turns the box to face him. He opens it and peers inside.
But we know you only as a 6-year-old boy. But already we can see profound kindness and courage in you. And those are exactly what you will need now.
Peter reaches inside the box and pulls out the image refractor, a small infinity beveled crystal device the size of an egg. It isn't a stone, neither it is a machine, but is both at the same time. Light bounces off it brilliantly, strangely. Peter's face hardens with determination. His fingers close around the refractor. Exterior over the city day. Suddenly, we're flying across the city canyons, first person in long, graceful arcs. We've done this before. We know who we are now. There's a building up ahead. Its windows a mirror. There's a red and blue blur flying at those windows, and we're coming in for a landing on the side of the building. And in a split second, the blur turns into a real thing. It lands on the glass right in front of us, giving us a perfect look at the unmistakable form of the amazing Spider-Man. But Spidey's only holding onto the building with 2 feet in one hand and the other hand is clutched the image refractor. And boy, did Peter's parent leave that thing in the right person or what? Spider-Man spins out a web and swings away, up, around, over, under, across the city towards the Empire State Building in the distance. He lands on the side of the building near the top and scampers up it to where it narrows, and he keeps crawling up. The building's just a skinny tip now, then skinnier. Then he reaches the flagpole at the pinnacle and the one we saw at the end of the first movie. And this time he goes even higher, climbing all the way to the top of the flagpole. The music dips just enough for Peter's father's voice to return.
To burden you with this is the hardest decision we've ever made, but there's simply no one else we can trust.
At the very tippy top of that flagpole, the very highest point in all of New York City, Spider-Man unscrews a tiny cupola on the flagpole tip, and who else but him would know you can do that? He carefully places the refractor into the small hollow space in the center of the pole and replaces the cupola.
Please forgive us for leaving you so soon. We love
The
you.
refractor,
Peter.
The refractor secured, Spider-Man leaps off the top of the flagpole, swan dives 20 or 30 stories, then spins a web and swings out over the city.
Mom and Dad.
Exterior over the city day. As Spider-Man swings down a narrow side street, he notices a car stopped at a red light right beneath him as he passes overhead. Nothing so unusual about that, right? Except for the carjacker at the driver's door pointing a gun through the window.
If there's one thing I hate,
He lets go of his web and does a mid-air tuck and roll, landing in a crouch at a nearby ledge.
it's a carjacker.
Exterior street day. Down on the street, the carjacker is shouting at the driver. A middle-aged tourist in a Green Bay Packers sweatshirt wide scream at him too. Camera around the neck. The driver's wife, same age, wearing a brand new I Love New York t-shirt, screams.
Tell her to quit screaming and screw you, Packers.
Yes, screw you, Packers. The tourist climbs out of the car terrified.
Don't hurt her, please. Take the car, take me, but don't hurt her.
and take the sweatshirt, burn it. The carjacker cocks his head to the backhand of the tourist across the face with a gun, but suddenly, thwip, the web strand wraps around the gun and yanks it right out of his hand.
Hey!
Flip, flap, another web strand flies in, wraps around his legs like a bolo. Zoop. The carjacker's feet are suddenly yanked right out from underneath him as he lifted up into his trussed together legs. He sails through the air over the car upside down, screaming. We zoom up on the web strands to where Spider-Man sits on the ledge, now looping the web strands around the nearby flagpole. He leaps off the ledge, somersaults twice in the air, and lands on the roof of the car, now face to upside down face with the captive carjacker.
We do not ever.
He clocks the carjacker, one in the jaw, which sends
ever point guns at people.
forth. Spider-Man just stares at him, hands on his hips, addressing the crook.
Let me down. Let me down. I'm going to be sick.
3 police cars come screaming around the corner. Spider-Man turns, looks down at the middle-aged couple.
Welcome to New York. It's really a very nice place to visit. You okay?
The tourist slams his fist into the hood of the car, angry.
Damn it.
That's an odd reaction. Now cops tumble out of the police cars. Lots of cops, maybe a dozen in all. And uniformed police captain, distinguished 50 or so, races over to Spider-Man furious.
Wait right there, you wall-crawling creep.
Well, that's some way to say thanks.
The police captain lunges forward to grab him, but Spider-Man leaps off the car and lands on the side of the building behind the police captain, who whirls around to face him. Spider-Man has landed directly on the white face of the large clock in the front of the building in Midtown. Torino store on 57th.
When I get my hands on you, I'll toss you in Rikers Island and throw away the key.
Well, that's a tempting offer. Can I think about it?
Get off that wall. You're coming with me.
Yikes, look at the time.
He shoots out a web and swings away. The captain watches him go, angry, his jaw set. Haven't heard the last of him. Cut to interior college building corridor day. Carrying a load of books, Peter races down an empty hallway in a college building. He nearly skids past the door to a classroom marked Dr. Kurt Connor's Microbiology. He slams on the brakes and darts inside. Interior Dr. Connor's classroom day. Peter manages to slip inside the classroom without disturbing the lecture in progress until a gust of wind from the open window sucks the door shut behind him and it slams. At the front, Dr. Kurt Connors looks up from his notes.
Mr. Parker, what could possibly more important than regenerative dermal tissue in the African tree frog?
There was this big problem and I'm late because of it.
Your future does not lie in professional deception. I guess that's good to know. Take a seat.
Peter slips into the nearest open seat, which happens to be next to a beautiful, fine-boned 20-year-old girl. Blonde hair, blue eyes, your basic nightmare, but modified slightly by her nerdy glasses. She sets down her pencil as Peter sits, takes off her glasses to rub her eyes. She happens to glance over at him. Peter attempts speech.
Hi, Gwen.
Gwen Stacy gives him a polite smile and looks back to the front. Her pencil rolls off her desk and falls into the floor between them. Peter's eyes widen at the possibility. He thinks about it for a second, then lurches over to pick it up for her. Unfortunately, he thought about it for a second too long, and by the time he's bending over to get it, Gwen is bending over too, and their heads smack together in the middle of the aisle.
Ow.
Ow! Dr. Connor looks up again, exasperated.
Parker, I will hit you with the shovel.
Cut to interior Dr. Connor's classroom. Day, the bell rings, class is over. Students bolt for the door. Peter is next to Gwen as they head out. He gives it another try.
I hope I bump into you again sometime.
She looks at him puzzled, touches her head. Really?
I mean, without hurting you. I don't want to hurt you.
That's a relief. She leaves. Peter bangs on his head. His hand on his head, lags behind.
You know, Peter, I had a foolish hope you'd show me some reason I should hire you back as my lab assistant this semester.
You have an incredible natural ability, which for some reason you refuse to discipline.
I'm sorry I was late again, Dr. Connors. It's so hard to get around town quickly.
Right. Connors looks at him and furrows his brow. That doesn't ring true at all.
How am I to learn your mind, Mr. Parker, if you persist in concealing it from me? When will you decide to trust me?
Peter looks at him long and hard and decides to trust him.
What do you know about neogenic technology?
Not a great deal. Why?
Oh, I read something about it. Sounds fascinating.
Then you should talk to Dr. Octavius.
Who?
Otto Octavius. He's not the foremost researcher in that field, but he is the most obsessed. He works out of a makeshift lab he put together in the Bronx after he lost his tenure in Columbia. I shared an office with him when I consulted on the genetic engineering project there.
He tears the paper off and holds it out to Peter, but Peter doesn't take it. He's still staring at Dr. Connors, thinking about the last thing he said.
What genetic engineering project at Columbia?
A bell rings in the corridor. Connors checks his watch and starts packing up his things.
Oh, they were trying to genetically combine the DNA strands of several different spiders in order to create a new species. Not a very good idea, as it turned out.
No shit. He picks up his satchel and heads for the door, leaving Peter staring after him stunned.
Tell Octavius I said hello.
A voice bellows at us from the next scene.
I want a severed limb.
Yummy. Cut to interior Daily Bugle newsroom day. J. Jonah Jameson, editor of the Daily Bugle, strides briskly across the newsroom, ranting at a stack of photos in his hand. Eddie Brock, a young photographer, tries to keep up.
That is a severed limb.
Don't sell me, Brock. I know a severed limb when I see one, and this is not a severed limb. It's a picture of an arm with the stump cropped out. What good is a subway wreck if you can't get me, don't get me the spaghetti shots?
Spaghetti and meatballs? He shoves the photo at Robbie Robinson, his second in command, walking on the other side of him.
Buried inside, Robbie.
For 6 minutes of deadline, Jonah. What about page 1?
Food poisoning scare sweeps city. Run it with a picture of rancid chicken.
There's a food poisoning scare?
I feel a little nauseous, yeah.
Betty Bryant, his assistant, waves at him as he passes.
Mr. Jameson, your 2 o'clock is here.
It's 2:30. He's late. Cancel it. I've never been so insulted in all my life.
No, sir, you're late.
Interior Jameson's office day. Bam! The door to Jameson's office slams shut and he keeps talking, not missing a beat.
It's outrageous. My behavior, appalling. Never been so late in all my life. I'm a busy man, and damn it, I won't apologize for it. What do you want?
As he settles into his desk chair, we see the man waiting in the leather chair opposite him. It's Harry Osborn.
I have a story for you. Good enough for tomorrow's front page.
Already got it. E. coli, Midtown City, vomits as one.
This is better. This is about Spider-Man.
Hoffman!
Bam! The door opens again. Hoffman, Jameson's homunculus, sticks his head in.
Tell Robbie, hold page 1.
Sorry. But it's.
Don't.
But it's. But it's.
Last warning.
Hoffman pipes down. Jameson turns back to Harry.
Talk fast, Osborn.
I'm offering a reward for information leading to the true identity of Spider-Man.
A reward, get in line. The Bugle has a standing offer of 10 grand already. Everybody knows that. Remind me, never mind, run the barf story.
I'm offering 10 million.
Kill the front page.
Exterior street day, the front page of the Bugle with a screaming headline over the picture of Spider-Man's face with a giant question mark drawn over his mask. Unmask him. Lunatic rich boy offers millions. Peter, waiting for a bus, stares at the front of the paper in shock. He sags into the bench and rips it open to the story on the inside, holding the paper up in front of his face. Horrified, Peter devours the words, flips the pages to the jump further in, reads more, flips the pages again, and when he moves the paper this time, he reveals somebody's face right behind it. Somebody who's snuck up on him. It's MJ.
Ah,
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
you scared the heck out of me.
Why so jumpy? You look like you were reading your own obituary.
He basically was. She rips the paper out of his hands and looks at Spider-Man's story on the front.
Ah, I see.
I wish Harry would let it go, that's all.
I bet you do.
For his sake.
Uh-huh.
What?
What?
Oh, so how's your friend Jeff? Do I need to say boyfriend yet?
Oh, he's great. Really great. Did I tell you I'm going to model for his new sculpture?
No, you didn't mention that.
Yeah, I'm kind of shy about it, but the human body is beautiful, right?
He sounds so artistic.
Yeah, it's going great. I think I might be fall.
Peter leans forward, waiting for her to finish the sentence.
Ugh, I can't say it. I can't.
What?
No way. You never let me live it down. Oh, you know that audition?
Yeah, what happened with that?
The usual. I got the part.
You what?
I got the part. Oh my gosh. I got I got the part. I'm so excited. It makes me sneeze. I got the part. Sure. Got the part.
That's fantastic.
You are looking at Rance Carver's new fiance from morning till night. Rance doesn't know it yet, but he's deeply troubled. Or she's deeply troubled.
You're perfect for it.
She has a dark secret, and there's no one she trusts enough to tell it to, not even Rance. But eventually, it destroys the relationship, and she ends up in a sanitarium in Zurich. But don't tell anyone that part.
Oh, that's my bus.
Secrets can do that to you, you know.
The city bus roars up.
See you later. Congratulations.
Sometimes you just have to let it out.
The bus door whooshes open. MJ holds up the bugle, pretending to look innocently at the front page.
Before someone does it for you.
Peter climbs on the bus quickly and the doors close behind him. Interior. Peter settles into a seat by the window and sighs in relief. Barely got away from her that time. He looks out the window. He sees the gymnast on the sidewalk standing on his hands doing tricks for the few passerby who throw coins into a hat. The gymnast goes up on just one hand, teeters precariously. Peter speaks softly, looking at the gymnast.
Harder than it looks, isn't it?
Cut to exterior Uptown Street Day, a decrepit building far uptown underneath the elevated train tracks. It's probably used to be a factory, but it's hard to tell what it is now. There's no markings on the outside. Strange sparks of light flash inside. Bizarre work takes place within. Interior Dr. Octavius Laboratory Day. Inside is a vast, nearly deserted factory floor, lit by the occasional bare bulb dangling from orange extension cords hung from the ceiling. On the far side of the floor is a makeshift laboratory, the source of the strange sounds and flashes we saw from outside. Everything here looks jury-rigged, not fragile necessarily, just inventive and unadorned. Sophisticated work done with no money but a lot of brains. Drawing closer, we see a man in a lab coat, his back to us. He's working at an odd-looking console set up before a thick sheet of glass, moving his arms strangely in front of him. Closer still, we notice that he has a thick metal brace fastened around his midsection. And as we pass around in front of him and through the glass, we skip looking at his face entirely as we're much too drawn by the living metal things growing from the brace seam corset. 4 telescoping tentacles. They vary in length from 3 to 10 feet, each with a different tool at the end. One that clasps, one that drills, one even cutting something microscopically small with a brilliant blue laser beam that shoots out at the end of it. The tentacles are working inside the glassed-in area, focused on equipment so minute that it's hard to see what's really going on. But enormous amounts of energy are being released. It erupts from various areas of focus in great, brilliant blue and orange and violet waves that roll out and crust against the foot-thick glass walls before crawling up them and dissipating into the ceiling like ocean waves freed from gravity. Reaching the end of one of the tentacles, we see it hand a newly glowing isotope into a test tube to another tentacle, which begins to retract, heading back towards the man at the control panel. We follow the glowing isotope. It shimmers beautifully in the test tube, gripping delicately by the tip of the metal claw. The glowing test tube rises up, held in the tentacle, until it's directly in front of the face of Dr. Otto Octavius, wearing thin wires attached to his temple that run into metal console. Reading his brain impulses to control the tentacles inside, Octavius' face glows like the tube he's holding up in front of the glass and gazes at it with near religious ecstasy. Success! But then, as we watch, the glow in the tube begins to dim, then to flutter, and eventually it dies out. The fluid in the tube turns a sodden dishwater gray. Octavius's face falls. Failure. There's a sound behind him and he whirls.
Who's there? What do you want?
Over near the door, Peter Parker walks into the room hesitantly.
Dr. Octavius?
If one could see a man's face when he sees a ghost, it would look exactly like Octavius's face does now. His eyes widen, his lip part, his skin turns pasty white.
You don't know me.
Parker.
Oh, I get you. Did Dr. Connors just call?
Octavius hits a few switches on the control panel in front of him, and the hinged metal corset opens, releasing him from his steely grip. He walks briskly across the room to Peter, grabbing him by the shoulders, and stares intently into his face.
You are a Parker.
Yeah, Peter Parker.
Octavius throws his arms around Peter and bursts into tears. Surprised, not sure what to do here, Peter puts his arms around the scientist awkwardly, pats him on the back a couple times.
It's okay. Easy there, doctor. Can I get you a tissue?
You don't understand. I thought it was like seeing a ghost.
Peter's curious. Octavius pulls back and looks at him in the eye.
As if I were looking at your father.
How did you know my father?
And your mother. We worked together almost 20 years ago.
But that's impossible. They were part of a very small team. We're only 3.
Peter stops, putting it together. Could it be? Octavius smiles and nods slowly.
I was the third man.
Cut to interior Octavius's lab day. Peter and Dr. Octavius sit opposite one another in some ratty old furniture in the corner lab. The sofa and the chair look like Octavius found them in the street corner. They're drinking coffee Octavius made over a Bunsen burner out of a chipped Kermit the Frog mug and a Taco Bell Super Saver souvenir cup. Peter is leaning forward intently, hanging on Octavius's every word.
Neogenic technology was in its infancy, but we knew even then the work we were doing was light years ahead of its time.
What is neogenics?
Simply, new use for an old organism. The idea is that the most powerful energy source in the world is right here, inside the human body. If the nucleus of a human cell is split in a precise manner at a precise moment in its molecular expansion, the energy it releases is
limitless.
The exact word. Imagine the implications. We were so idealistic, so naive, but we never dreamed of its military implications until it was too late.
They wanted to make it into a weapon.
The most powerful weapon on the planet. Easy to produce, available to anyone who had access to its design. It would have spelled the end of mankind.
I know my parents became very concerned just before the plane crash.
Plane crash?
I read a letter
Young man, your parents didn't die in a plane crash. Your mother and father were murdered.
Murdered?
A Soviet double agent known only as the Black Hand wormed his way into their confidence, then betrayed and killed your parents. They were too smart for him just before they died.
They removed the most important piece of equipment.
That's right. How? Never mind. I don't want to know. It wouldn't be safe for you. We were too late to discover our lives were in danger last time. I won't make the same mistake again.
He rises and walks towards the glass-walled area.
For 20 years, I've worked on for just two things. First, to discover the true identity of the Black Hand and bring him to justice. And second, to find a way to complete our neogenic research in a way that removes its potential as a weapon, but still provides abundant energy for the good of our entire planet.
At the tank, he touches the Walsley, forlorn. Looking over his failures, the four metal tentacles lie sprawled across the tile floor, lifeless.
But I failed. The image refractor your parents designed resequences the visual spectra 1,000 times a second. Only one precise sequence can split the cell nucleus. I've built hundreds of them over the last 15 years. None worked. I don't have half the ingenuity or intellect your parents had. They were an incredible team, Peter. 1 and 1 wasn't 2 with Richard and Mary Parker. Together, they added up to something infinite. They were remarkable scientists, the kindest human beings I've ever known. I couldn't stand that their life's work had come to nothing, that the book of their lives remained an empty page because of a murdering madman. I refused to surrender, even when it cost me my career. I had to finish the project for them. I was on the verge of giving up on their legacy when it walked through my door. You, Peter, my godson, you are the only thing your parents have left behind.
Peter is stirred by Octavius's words.
Not the only thing.
Octavius, who may have heard, raises an eyebrow. Cut to exterior over the city night. A view of the city at night. Spider-Man swings. Exterior over the city night. A view of the city at night. Spider-Man swings through the frame, not too fast, from one side to the other. The camera holds still, lets him leave frame. He swings through again from the other side now, like a pendulum. We get a better look at him this time. See that he's crouching, resting his chin on his hand, wrestling with something very heavy on his mind. Peter's voiceover comes in again.
Not that you ask, but here's another thing I've noticed about life.
We pull back a bit and Spider-Man swings through again. This time we see he's leaning forward. The arm that holds up his chin has its elbow resting on his thigh. Rodin's classic thinker pose.
It comes down to choices. You take the 6 or 7 billion choices you got to make in your life, you add them all up, and that sort of equals who you are.
Pulling back still further, we see that Spidey's crouching on the bottom of an I-beam. But that's weird. How can the I-beam be swinging in the air like that? Is it stuck to Spider-Man's feet somehow?
Left or right, right or wrong?
The camera rotates 180 degrees and we understand now. Spider-Man's thoughtful pose is at the bottom of the I-beam. He's clinging upside down and the beam is dangling from a crane, high atop a skyscraper under construction.
Up or down? I hate choices. I will say this for me, though. I'm consistent.
Making a decision, he releases his hold on the I-beam and drops to the building below. He leaps once, twice, third time, light as a cat from beam to beam, then shoots out a web and swings away towards a building in the distance.
Give me a 50-50 chance, and I'll pretty much always...
Exterior, Octavius's lab night, close on the image refractor itself, which Peter holds delicately between two fingers.
The wrong one.
The refractor is moving slowly off subtle rainbows of light as it reflects the street light overhead. Peter crosses the street with it, headed for Otto Octavius's laboratory building. It's nighttime now. The lab is more ominous than before. Its empty windows like hollow eye sockets, huge from front doors like gaping mouth. Lightning flashes, thunder rumbles, storm coming. Interior Octavius's lab night, still following the refractor, we march with Peter across the lab floor to where Octavius is back at work on the other side. He turns, hearing Peter approach. Peter raises the device up in front of him for Octavius to see.
Finish. For them.
Octavius looks at the refractor. He can't believe his eyes. He looks from Peter to the device, back at Peter, back at his holy grail. He turns, mumbling excitedly to himself, and hurries across the room to a long work table burdened with a mountain of books and papers. He bends down under the table, takes out a strong box, dials a combination, and opens it. He reaches inside and takes out a large Ziploc bag with a spheral notebook inside, yelling with age. He removes the notebook, holding it gingerly like a relic. He places it on the desk and turns the pages delicately. The notebook is filled front to back with handwritten pages dense with calculations. He reaches a particular page with a handwritten sketch of the image refractor, holds the real thing up next to it. Clearly, this is made from that. He turns, looks at Peter, and smiles. Relief, satisfaction, closure. He sighs deeply. He turns and looks back at Peter, smiles.
The resemblance is so striking.
If it's all right with you, I'd like to help you complete the work.
Octavius goes to a large bureau on the other side of the room and starts rummaging through it.
Your face, the way you walk and talk.
Octavius opens and closes his drawers, searching for something.
Your concern for others, your trusting nature.
He opens a drawer in the middle, digs way in the back, reaching for something. Peter gets a strange feeling. He furrows his brow. Something's bothering him.
All James Parker, to a T. When you walked through that door this afternoon, I couldn't believe my eyes. Because I was looking at the man.
Octavius starts to pull back from the cabinet. He's holding something. We can't quite see what it is. Peter's eye widen. It's the spidey sense. We zoom towards the pupil of his right eye, go inside the pupil into the place there. Peter's spidey sense takes over. Everything around him slows to a crawl as his perception leaps around his body, searching the room for some sign of the danger he's picking up on. Over at the door, a dust bunny blows in the corner. Over near the glass tank, an air vent hung over by the window. A fly ticks against the pane, trying to get outside. Octavius from the back, just a blank look at his lab coat, but Peter's perception whips around to the front of Octavius to see what Peter's eyes cannot, to see Octavius's right hand and the gun he's holding in it. Back to real time, we zoom out of Peter's eye and wide and alert to the danger. Octavius turns around and points the gun at Peter.
I was looking at a man I killed 15 years ago.
Bam! He squeezes the trigger and the bullet flies out of the barrel of the gun, but Peter's already moving up the air, double somersault backwards, and he lands atop a metal supply cabinet just as the bullet crunches into the front panel, right where his head was.
You're a fool. Just like your parents. There was no double agent. No black hand other than mine on the handle of the gun that killed them. And now you've given me what they would not. You can die like they did.
He fires again. Peter leaps again, lands in another cabinet.
Don't pretend I'm the villain of this scenario, Parker. They were the small-minded destroyers, the Luddites, the enemies of progress. I was Edison, and they were quashing the light bulb. My own work, my lifetime of research, useless without the refractor. How dare they?
He fires 3 more times. Pop, 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 as Peter vaults into a triple somersault at the end of him smashing through the window. Exterior fire escape night. Peter lands on the fire escape outside the factory windows. The storm has hit by now. Rain lashes the street below. Thunder booms and lightning flashes. Peter leaps to his feet and climbs atop the railing, looking around for escape. Of course, he could spin a web, but there are people on the street below staring up at him, pointing. Just across from him, he sees the elevated train tracks that pass near the window of Octavius's lab. A train is coming. 3 more shots blast through the window behind him. One zings off the railing right beneath his feet. Peter turns. Octavius is coming near the window. The next shot won't miss. The train is closer. Peter bends his knees, leaps across the street towards the train as a blinding flash of lightning turns everything white for a second. In the window, Octavius squints at the lightning. He just barely sees the image of Peter Parker flying out into the train tracks right in front of the train. It's whistling, screaming at him. Octavius smiles in satisfaction, for there is a thunk that means Peter Parker was just killed by the train. He must have been. No human being could have maneuvered himself out of a way of that oncoming train.
How touching.
Exterior top the speeding train night. Of course, we all know Peter Parker is no ordinary human being. Not only did he get out of the way of the train, he landed on top of it, and he stands there now, speeding downtown, the wind and rain lashing his body. We move in on him fast to his face, set hard with anger and determination. We only see him once before when Uncle Ben was killed. Unlike then, Peter knows what he must do. Cut to interior Peter's bedroom night. Peter, dripping wet, takes his shirt off and stands in front of his dresser. He throws aside some clothes, revealing something at the bottom of the drawer. His Spider-Man costume. Interior Octavius's lab night. In the lab, the image refractor glows brilliantly in Octavius's hand. He wades into the center of the maze of whirling and wiring and tubing inside the glass-walled tank, opens it up. He removes his inferior-looking device and tosses it aside contemptuously, replacing it reverently with the one Peter brought to him. Exterior Peter's bedroom night. Rain lashes the window of Peter's bedroom. We watch Peter's silhouette from outside as he slips into his costume. Interior Octavius lab night. In the lab, the iron corset that controls the metal tentacle swings open. Interior Peter's bedroom night. In Peter's bedroom, he pulls Spider-Man's mask over his face. Interior Octavius's lab night. Ka-chunk! The metal straitjacket slams shut around Octavius's midsection, holding him tight, attaching him to a metal tentacles that extend into the glass-walled tank. Exterior Peter's building night. Spider-Man crawls out the window of his bedroom and up the side of the building, higher, all the way to the top. On top of the building, Spider-Man stands tall, turns north to the direction of Octavius's lab, raises an arm, and we go to close on his wrists. The web shoots out into the night. Interior Octavius's lab night. Snap! The four metal tentacles, which were lying lifelessly on the floor in the glass tank, twitch to life. They rise maniacally into the air, controlled by Octavius. The claw handles snap. The drill whines. The laser beam buzzes. You know, if someone misuses these things, they could be deadly. Exterior city night. Spider-Man swings across the city, headed north. He lands on the roof of a cab, rides it for a while, shoots out another web, and swings away. Interior Octavius's lab night. Otto Octavius works feverishly, referring to a raft of calculations on a computer monitor on a stand beside him. Inside the tank, the metal arms move with frightening combination of strength and delicacy. They combine chemicals, apply heat, minute doses of radiation, slice through the hearts of nuclei and brilliant white slices of light nanoseconds thick. Exterior Octavius's lab night. A shot of the city seen from the roof of Octavius's lab. Spider-Man thunks into view, clinging to the side of the neighboring building. Suddenly and sideways, filling our frame, he leaps and lands atop a skylight. He peers down into the lab. Interior Octavius's lab night. Spider-Man's shadow appears on the floor of the lab just behind Octavius, who is working frantically at the console. The shadow moves, sliding across the floor towards the scientist before disappearing. In Octavius's glass, you see the reflections of the work going on inside the tank. Glowing tubes, bursts of light, flashes of heat. Octavius wipes sweats from his forehead with one free hand. He's getting closer to completion. He turns his head and leans to the side to check the calculations on the computer screen beside him. When he turns back, something has suddenly appeared between him and the glass wall of the tank. Spider-Man's face. He's dangling upside down, face to mask, right in front of Octavius. Octavius screams in alarm.
No, Spider-Man, what do you want?
World peace. Settle for your chin.
He hauls off and cracks Octavius across the jaw. The doctor's head snaps. His body lurches, still held by the metal corset. Spider-Man releases the web he's dangling from and lands on the floor beside Octavius.
I've done nothing wrong.
What do you call murder?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Spider-Man grabs Octavius by the neck with his free hand and
Maybe you'll remember in jail.
lifts him up off the ground, holding metal bracings to stand. The glass wall of the tank explodes in a shower of glass, and the metal tentacle wraps itself around Spider-Man's throat. He chokes, gasps in pain. He drops Octavius, who falls to the ground, hitting a number of switches on the console in front of him as he does so. Inside the tank, monitors on the ancient bank of computers start flashing formulas and data. Heat spins around the edges of the blue coil and begins to warm up a gravy brown liquid in the test tube, reacting to the unintended commands Octavius just gave by falling onto the switches. In the lab, Octavius holds Spider-Man up in front, held in the tentacle's grasp, screaming at him.
How dare you interfere?
The other 3 tentacles smash against the remaining glass walls of the tank, trying to get at Spider. The walls splinter and crack. It's just a matter of time before the other arms break through. When they do, Spider-Man is finished.
I'll crush you like the bug you are. Kill like I killed everyone who got in my way. There is no power like an idea whose time has come, and I am that idea.
Spider-Man strains against the enveloping tentacle, using every ounce of strength he has.
I hate to interrupt a megalomaniac when he's on a roll.
The glass smashes. The other 3 tentacles whistle through the air towards Spider-Man, but he bursts free of the first tentacle's grip. He leaps straight up just as the other tentacles smash in the air where he was just standing. Inside the tank, liquids and gases inside the intricate nests of test tubes start to move faster, to bubble. Smoke and vapor leap out of the connections. The entire system is groaning. Something is terribly wrong. In the lab, Spider-Man clings to the ceiling. He looks down and sees the tentacles rocketing up towards him. Smash! Spider-Man leaps up as the tentacle crashes into the ceiling next to him. Smash! It happens again and again. Spider-Man leaps to a safe patch and suddenly loses his hold. He falls, shouting, and lands with a thud on the floor.
What the?
He leaps back up, and this time for a wall, but only one hand sticks. He falls again, and this time lands on his feet.
What's going on? I'm losing my grip.
Kaboom! The tentacles rocket straight at him and smashes into the wall and him just between his legs. Whew, that was lucky.
Here's in your eye.
He raises his wrist and shoots the web strands out at Octavius, but it never gets there. All that comes out is a narrow little spurt of web that dies halfway across the floor.
Oh no.
Octavius grins. Spider-Man is done for. Suddenly, a shrill alarm begins to sound in the lab. Octavius interrupts his rampage and turns horrified, looking into the tank. In the tank, glass tubes crack like ice this time with a great, strange sucking sound. The entire works suddenly implodes. Tubes and gases and liquids and vapors all collapsing inward on each other. In the lab, there's an unnatural silence for a moment, filled only by the quiet horror of Octavius's voice.
But I was so close.
Kaboom! Everything flies everywhere as rolling violet heat erupts from the glass tank, leveling all that stands before it. Spider-Man is thrown clear across the floor as the lab is and out the window onto the fire escape. The walls of the tank blast outward like the house on a tornado. Octavius takes the worst of the blast, the wall of heat searing into him, the edges of the metal corset glowing white. Octavius screams in pain as it sizzles against his flesh, burning and melting and cauterizing instantly. The metal electrodes on his temples sear into his flesh as well as the blast lifts Octavius right off his feet. Corset and tentacles and console and all, it hurls him across the lab where he's buried under rubble. Exterior fire escape night. On the fire escape, Spider-Man drags himself to his feet, bleeding and burned, and stares through the window at the wreckage in the lab.
Dr. Octavius!
But there's no movement under the thick pile of rubble. A rumbling sound comes from within the remains of the glass tank, another explosion brewing, and Spider-Man barely has time to leap onto the wall of the adjacent building before a second blast rips out the window of the laboratory. Again, Spider-Man slips from the wall, this time nearly falling 4 stories, but he manages to grip hold of the ledge to dangle there. He pulls himself up in the ledge and looks down for the first time in a long time. He's afraid of heights. In the distance, he hears sirens approaching. Gotta get out of here and fast. He tries his hand on the side of the building. It sticks. Well, sort of. He climbs, slipping half the time, but he makes it to the roof of the building. He looks back at the burning laboratory building. No one could have survived for long in there. He holds out a hand, aims to shoot a web, then realizes that was the hand that had no webs and switches to the one holding out the other one.
Come on.
Thwip. Not a problem this time. The web shoots out and sticks to the building in the distance.
Thank God.
Spider-Man swings away into the night. Interior Octavius's lab night. We creep back into the still burning lab over the smoldering rubble in the telescoping metallic arms trapped under the rubble. They're inert, lifeless, until they tremble, come to life. They sweep across the rubble, twitching like mad snakes. We follow them all the way up to their source, to the metallic straitjacket, still wrapped around the charred figure of Dr. Otto Octavius. He groans, still alive. Cut to exterior Aunt May's house night. The front of the door of Aunt May's house opens and she gasps in alarm. Peter stands in her front step, his street clothes again, but looking bruised and bedregged.
Peter, what happened to you?
He just looks at her.
Why didn't you tell me?
Cut to interior Aunt May's living room night. Peter's sitting on Aunt May's couch, looking up as she brings him a sandwich with a pickle and a glass of milk.
I'm not hungry.
That's what they all say.
She puts the sandwich on the table next to him and sits down. An awkward silence.
Drink your milk. It's good for you.
I'm waiting for an answer, Aunt May. Why didn't you ever tell me my parents were murdered?
You've had so much to live through, kiddo. So much, so young. I was afraid of what it would do to you. I know what a determined young man you are. For you, a question without an answer is like a red flag to a bull. I didn't want you to go off half-cocked, looking for justice or revenge. I didn't want you to live in the past. Your life is right now.
He starts to eat the sandwich.
Be proud of your mother and father, but don't fight their battles. They've already been fought. They're over.
Peter keeps eating faster. He is hungry. It's almost like he can't stop himself.
What's important for you to know is how much they loved you and how much they loved each other. That's what you should be looking for now. Love.
He looks up at her. Not a bad idea. Cut to exterior street, Manhattan day. The front window of a tourist shop in the Midtown, loaded with Spider-Man costumes for sale. Just like the real thing. Peter Parker does a double take and frowns as he passes it, walking down the street with Harry Osborn. Peter's wearing jeans and a backpack. Harry's a business suit and a briefcase.
Tell me the last thing you said to her again.
Hi, Gwen.
No, at the end.
I think it was, I don't want to hurt you.
Smooth.
I can't help it. Every time I see her, my brain turns to guacamole.
Maybe just grab some chips. They walk past a street gymnast, the same one Peter saw earlier. This time he's doing backflips.
Not bad, buddy.
He looks back at the gymnast, struck by a thought.
You gotta try not to actually frighten women, Pete.
They reach the curb where a black town car waits. The driver gets out and comes around to open the door for Harry.
Thanks for the help.
You don't need help. Just relax and be the hopeless spaz we all know and love. She'll see you're a geek after her own heart, and she's not worth the trouble.
The driver opens the door, hands Harry a copy of today's Bugle.
Drop you off?
No thanks.
What? It's just a town car.
I like to walk.
Harry glances at the Bugle. It's a split page, a shot of Spider-Man on one side and the picture of Harry on the other, looking angry and pointing his finger at the camera under the headline, "Show me his face, I'll show you the money." Harry grins and shows it to Peter.
That'll make him sweet.
Why don't you quit chasing him, Harry? Why don't you just drop it?
Drop it? Drop it?
Peter winces and there is a faint crackling sound from his wrist. Peter looks down.
Harry.
Realizing what he's doing, Harry lets go of Peter's hand. The face of Peter's wristwatch has been crushed.
I'm sorry. Maybe you and me better drop it.
I guess we better.
He heads down the street back the way they came. Harry looks down at the paper thinking. He sees the photo credit printed beneath the shot of Spider-Man. Photo by Peter Parker. He looks back at Peter, who has stopped to talk to the street gymnast for some reason. Harry thinks.
Chasing the wrong guy.
Down the block, Peter is talking to the gymnast, who is smiling.
You're sure?
No problem. 1 o'clock.
Peter hands him some folded up money.
1 o'clock Thursday.
Sounds like a riot.
A bell rings. Cut to interior Dr. Connor's classroom day. As the lizard darts its tongue out at us from the inside a cage, one of the rows of cages in Dr. Connor's room at Empire State University. Class is ending, students bolting for the door. At the front, Dr. Connors is talking to Peter.
Why so curious?
I remember reading about the genetically engineered spiders at Columbia for quite a while. Then it stopped showing up in the journals. I always wondered why.
Because it was a failure.
What do you mean? Did it shorten their lifespans?
Let me see.
Peter holds his breath while Connor searches his memory.
No. No, it wasn't mortality. Recidivism was the problem. In time, the enhanced physical powers we engineered into them began to erode. Their abilities, then sporadic, random, came and went for no reason. Eventually, the spiders reverted to rather unspectacular arachnids.
He heads for the door. Peter follows him. Peter catches up to Dr. Connors, walking briskly down the corridor.
And there was nothing you could do to stop the erosion.
Not that we could think of.
Why did it happen?
Good question. No one was ever able to answer that.
Was there a leading theory?
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at my notes.
He notices Peter is staring at him with urgency.
Which I will be happy to do for you, Mr. Parker. The very moment you turn in your paper on phantom limb impulses, which is now 9 days late. If you spent half as much time on your class book as you do on your extracurricular research, you might amount to something one day.
But he said that last with a smile as he rounds a corner, leaving Peter alone. Peter keeps walking, looking after him, thinking, and when he turns and looks forward again, he realizes someone has fallen into step beside him. It's Gwen Stacy. She seems nervous.
Oh, hi.
Hi, I'm sorry. I couldn't help it over here. Well, the truth is, I was listening. Well, the truth is, I was eavesdropping. Well, the truth is, I got up so that I could listen. Would you like to be my lab partner? Shoot.
Shoot?
I'm sorry. I don't usually get nervous like this.
You're nervous?
He looks around. Is there somebody else here? Is this a joke? A little.
Okay.
Okay, what?
I'd like to be your lab partner.
That's great. I could sure use the help. Not that's why I asked. Not that I don't want help. Not that that's the only reason. Oh, this is coming out stupid.
Why?
Because I sound like I'm 13.
No, why are you nervous?
Looks at him simply. What a silly question. Because you're Peter Parker. He looks at her, bowled over. What an incredibly sweet thing to say. Nobody said anything quite like that to him before. I snuck a copy of your paper on the mitochondrial stem structure. I've never read anybody as smart as you that knew, anyway, personally anyway, my age anyway. It's weird how I won't shut up, don't you think?
Would you like to have dinner with me tonight?
She thrust out her hand. I'm Gwen Stacy.
I know. Is it okay if it's just that coffee shop on 86th?
We've met, duh.
We could talk another time.
I'd love to.
Talk later?
No dinner.
No dinner?
Shut up.
I'd love to.
He smiles. Hey, turned out to be a good day. Cut to exterior Boulevard Bellevue Hospital night. Well, not for everybody. We're outside Bellevue Hospital, creeping towards its creepy upper floors. Interior Bellevue night, now creeping across a ward, a crowded one, 24 beds in not that much space. We follow a nurse carrying a tray of medicines, dropping them off at one bed at a time. She reaches a bed in the far corner. This one's got curtains drawn all around it. Must be something really horrible in there. She checks her chart. No medication for this bed, but she thinks she hears a groan from behind the curtains and takes a step closer. Did she really hear that? From the other side of the curtain, Octavius's voice.
Is anyone there?
The nurse gasps and nearly drops her tray. She turns and hurries across the floor. Moments later, a doctor comes racing across the ward beside the nurse. They reach the far corner.
Wait here.
He throws the curtain aside, disappears behind it. We stay on the nurse, watching her reactions as we hear the conversation from the other side.
Dr. Octavius,
Where am I?
you're in Bellevue Hospital. There's an explosion in your lab. You are badly injured.
I feel so strange.
Before you try to sit up, there's something I need to explain.
My body's so heavy.
When you were brought in, you had no blood pressure, no pulse. There was so little we could do.
What is this? What are...
Your skin had melted, your internal organs fused and cauterized. To remove the apparatus would have caused massive hemorrhaging. You'd have died.
Oh my God.
The nurse takes a step back. The other patients in the ward turn to look.
In time, perhaps we can attempt to.
Oh my God in heaven.
Nurse!
But the nurse backs off. No way she's going in there.
What have you done?
Call secure.
The doctor's cry for help is cut off as he suddenly appears above the curtain, held aloft by God knows what. Shaken wildly back and forth as Octavius's voice rings out over the ward.
What have you turned me into?
Pandemonium. Patients flee. City men stream into the ward. The nurse runs for her life, and behind the curtain, metal tentacles whip this way and that, smashing into the walls, the ceiling, the rows of glass cabinets, but still we can't get a good look at what's behind the curtains.
Pay for this.
The doctor goes flying, hurled by the tentacle, and smashes into the barred windows nearby. And now, all at once, the tentacles rip the curtains away, revealing Otto Octavius standing beside the bed, his bed, bare-chested, the metal bracing systems welded into his charred flesh. Before we can get a decent look at this horror, a bright light falls right in front of us, and by the time we blink, we're looking at the wall behind Octavius, at his shadow, thrown crazily in the wall by the rolling light. The shadow itself is terrible enough, an image of a man with 4 long metal tentacles protruding directly from his midsection, whipping and snapping in the air around him. The shadow man raises his arms above his head and rails at the heavens as his tentacles flare like Medusa's hair.
For this, Spider-Man will pay.
Cut to exterior coffee shop night. Peter Parker is having a much better night than Dr. Octavius. We're outside the window of the 3-star coffee shop on 86th Street. Peter and Gwen Stacy are inside talking over the remains of a couple grilled cheese sandwiches. They're talking a lot, both at once sometimes, and laughing. Gwen gestures, grabs her bag, starts to get up. As she slides out of the booth, she impulsively leans across the table and kisses him softly on the lips. A good kiss. She walks off, probably to the bathroom, but not to crap. That's gross. Really? And Peter smiles. This is outrageously good day. But not quite, we think, because as we pull back from the window of the coffee shop, we notice a shadowy figure standing just outside the yellow throw of the street lamp, staring through the window at Peter Parker, watching him. Cut to interior TV studio day. Mary Jane Watson puts her hands on her hips angrily.
Do you have any idea how that makes me feel? I told you I loved you and I meant it. What makes you think that's changed? Don't you have some semblance of a notion of how much you mean to me? Especially now, after the operation.
Huh? Operation? We see who she's talking to, and it's not Peter. It's a handsome actor wearing a large white bandage on his head. They're standing on a set in a TV studio. It's supposed to be somebody's living room. The handsome actor steps closer, putting his arms around her.
How could I have been so blind?
It was the aneurysm talking.
Oh, it's always aneurysm. Over his shoulder, MJ notices Peter Parker standing at the edge of the set, grinning from ear to ear. MJ notices and her eyes twinkle, but then she notices something else. Gwen Stacy is standing right next to Peter. They're holding hands. The twinkle disappears. She turns to the handsome actor.
I will never love anyone else.
She puts her hands on his face and kisses him passionately. Peter frowns, and this makes him incredibly jealous. Gwen looks at him. He covers up the frown. The kiss goes on until...
And cut.
Scene ends, bell rings, and there is much congratulating all around. MJ waves to Peter and heads over, followed closely by the handsome actor.
That was incredible. That kiss was a great ad-lib. I had no idea you were going to do it.
Yeah, I just felt like I really needed to do it. She
She reaches
to do
Peter
that.
and Gwen. Sorry.
Hey,
She
Pete.
reaches Peter and Gwen.
Oh, well, I was going to say I can't believe you're here, but the truth is I can. I always knew you'd make it, MJ. I'm so proud of you.
He's hugging her. Gwen clears her throat politely.
Oh, MJ, this is my, I'd like you to meet Gwen Stacy.
Thanks so much for letting us come.
No problem. Quite a guy you're dating, isn't he?
Oh, he sure is. How long have you known each other?
Only forever. Peter's practically my brother. Oh.
Gwen loops an arm through Peter's. Well, I'm glad he's not mine. MJ pastes a smile on her face. Can't take much more of this. We should all go out sometime.
Great idea.
Yeah.
MJ feigns checking her watch, but she's not wearing one.
Oh God, it's so late. I gotta get a cab. Nice to meet you.
Gwen.
Right, Gwen. Of course, it's Gwen. Okay, be nice to him, or I'll have to kill you in your sleep.
She laughs. Gwen laughs. Peter laughs. Gosh, that wasn't funny. Cut to interior Jameson's office day. Peter pokes his head in the door to Jonah Jameson's office.
You wanted to see me, sir?
Jameson looks up from behind his desk and smiles.
Hello, Peter. Come in. Sit down. Sit down.
Peter sits suspiciously. Jameson is speaking slowly, the way a normal person would.
How are you, son?
Fine.
Good. School okay?
Uh-huh. Is anything wrong, sir?
Wrong? What makes you think something is wrong?
Well, you're smiling a lot.
It's a part of the new me. It was the missus' suggestion. Apparently the old me was too touch abrasive. More flies with honey sort of thing. What do you think?
It's kind of scary.
You're right. God awful idea. Miss Bryant?
Betty Bryant sticks her head in.
Fire the shrink, cancel the rub down, tell my wife that I am who I am, and if she doesn't like it, you'll be glad to fix her a map of the door. Parker, get me that picture.
What picture?
Jameson hurls a copy of today's paper at Peter.
It's called The Bugle, kid. Ever read it?
The front page is a picture of Belleville Hospital with a screaming headline over it. Freaks are us.
It's all over town. Rumors, gossip, panic in the streets if we're lucky. Crazy scientist blew up his own lab, turned himself into some kind of monster, 410 more medical arms welded right to his body.
He holds up an artist rendering of what Octavius might look like with arms and tentacles extended.
Octavius?
Yeah, that's the name. Who would have thought? A guy named Otto Octavius ends up with 8 limbs. What are the odds? Hoffman?
Hoffman ducks his head in.
What are we going to call this guy?
Dr. Octopus?
I hate it.
Science Squid.
Who asked you?
Dr. Octopus?
Don't make me come over there.
Doctor Strange.
Already taken. Wait, I got it. Dr. Octopus.
Well, I like it.
He's still alive?
Alive and on the run. Took off out of Bellevue. Hasn't been seen since. Get me a picture, Parker, and don't blow it.
If he's on the run, how am I supposed to find him?
Why do you think I called you? Hell, if it was easy, I'd give it to Brock.
Then why don't you give me a real job instead of just freelance work?
Never. You're too good for this place. Can't hold you back. Won't do it. Too Dutch damn respect for you, kid. Now bring me that picture. Or I never want to see your face again.
Cut to exterior atop a building day. Spider-Man lands on a gargoyle, scanning the streets below.
I'll find you.
He leaps exterior Trinity Church Day and lands atop a spire of Trinity Church down at the end of Wall Street.
Wherever you are, Octavius.
He shoots a web, leaps exterior AT&T building Bay and swings to a sticky stop at the side of the weird AT&T building on 10th Avenue.
You can be sure of one thing.
He leaps again, exterior Columbus Circle Day, and lands atop a huge, shiny steel globe.
I will find you.
Pulling, we see it. The globe outside of Gulf and Western's building on Columbus Circle. Beneath it, the rush hour mass of commuters pour out of the 59th Street subway station, more swarming over the plaza above it, giving us some idea of how hard it is going to be to find one particular needle in this gigantic haystack. Cut to interior Stacy apartment night. Gwen Stacy opens the door of her family apartment and smiles at us. You made it. Peter Parker walks in a bit sweaty. She kisses him.
Sorry I'm late. I had to run all over town.
Your timing's perfect. We're just about to eat. Peter follows her into the apartment, a big rent-controlled pre-war on the Upper West Side. The place is a pleasant mess. Kid stuff strewn everywhere, school projects, board games in progress, and innumerable brightly colored bits of plastic junk. Not to mention people. From the looks of it, Gwen has 3 brothers, all younger, from 5 to 14. But there must be another family here too. Total 5 kids in the place. Number 7 or 8. Throw in 2 mothers, 2 fathers, a stray neighbor or 2. And there's about 15 people in the apartment. And this is just an average Wednesday. Peter trips on a partially disassembled toy lawnmower, which sings a lawn mowing song at him in repose. Sorry, it's a minefield around here. Screaming kids run past just as Peter says something. Huh?
I said I kind of like it. Feels like home.
It better be, or I'm in the wrong apartment.
They turn. Peter, this is my dad, Captain George Stacy. Captain George Stacy is a distinguished man of 50 or so in an NYPD captain shirt, collared unbuttoned. He climbs out of his chair, newspaper in hand.
Glad to meet you, Peter.
Peter's jaw drops. Just for a second, he fails to shake Captain Stacy's hand because he recognizes him. Because Captain Stacy is the same police captain who's tried to arrest Spider-Man after he captured the Carjacker. Peter snaps out of it, shakes Captain Stacy's hand.
Good to see you too. Meet you, sir.
I think Gwen's told us everything about you in the past few weeks.
Oh, probably not everything.
Then you can fill in the blanks. Let's eat.
Cut to interior kitchen night. In the Stacy kitchen, everybody sits around a large wooden table that hangs halfway out the door into the living room. Dinner is loud and loose and fun, laughter and reaching. Captain Stacy sits at one end of the table next to Gwen. He's still got today's Daily Bugle, which he reads sneakily while they eat. Peter on the other side of her, between Gwen and her 8-year-old brother, Billy. While noisy conversations go on around them, Billy scoops up some French fries off Peter's plate. Peter notices but pretends not to. When Billy looking the other way, Peter steals them back and then some. Billy notices, looks at Peter suspiciously. Peter looks at him.
What?
What's that?
Peter pretends to fall for it, exaggeratedly looking in that direction.
Where?
Billy steals all the French fries. Peter looks back at his plate in mock aghast.
What the?
Gwen laughs. Mrs. Stacy next to her husband notices the bugle.
George, the paper. We have guests.
Who? Oh, right. Sorry.
He tosses the paper on the table where Peter can see the front page. It's the artist's rendering of what Otto Octavius might look like now under the headline, "Have you seen this man?" Billy notices it.
Spider-Man, he'll catch him. Mm-hmm. Ha! That'll be the day. Well, he will. Spider-Man couldn't catch a cold in Alaska, Billy.
Some laughter. Peter doesn't think it's funny.
Here we go again.
$10. Says that webhead swung off with his tail between his legs when he saw that picture.
Peter shifts in his seat. Dad. Met him once, you know.
Oh, you met Spider-Man?
He broke up a car theft. I was there to make the arrest. Wish I could have taken him in with me.
Well, if he prevented the crime and helped you catch the carjacker.
Captain Stacy looks at him for a long moment.
I said theft, not carjacker.
Oh, you did? I guess I just assumed.
Right. As it happens, it was a carjacker, and yes, we caught him, but we were after a whole ring of them that had been prying on tourists and retail cars. Finally, one of our undercover units had been targeted. We had helicopter surveillance, a traffic device in the car. It would have led us straight to the whole ring. But Spider-Man thought he knew better.
I hadn't heard about that.
6 months of work. Down the drain. 6 months. At least no one was hurt that time.
It just seems to me, I mean, from what I've read, there are so many other times he really helped people. That should count for something. It should count for a lot, even if once in a while.
I'm sorry, Peter. You're mistaken, my friend.
All I'm saying is...
No, Peter.
The other conversations trail off. Everyone is drawn to Captain Stacy's authoritative tone.
There simply are not two sides to this issue, son. Anytime someone takes the law into their own hands, they're doing harm, no matter what the outcome. Our system isn't perfect, but the rule of law is what makes us a civilized society. We may not always like our laws, and we're free to change them, but in one way only at the ballot box. If one person can cooperate outside the law, why can't everyone? What Spider-Man is doing is actually setting an example for the very criminals he tries to catch. The wrong example. I cannot respect who doesn't respect the law. Someday, Spider-Man may learn that, but I guess he'll have to learn it on his own.
There's an awkward silence. His words have cut close to Peter's heart, and he has no response to that. Billy Stacy, the 8-year-old, leans over and whispers in Peter's ear.
I think he's cool.
I do too. Cut to exterior Octavius's lab day. A long black cloak snaps over us as we follow the man in the cloak across a busy street up in the Bronx, headed for the building that houses Otto Octavius's ruined laboratory. It's Octavius himself, wearing the long garment to hide his barrel chest and pair of large dark sunglasses to hide his identity. He's a wafer-thin titanium case. Interior, Octavius's lab day. The ruins of the lab are still smoking. Octavius walks into the rubble, his boots crunching through broken glass and shattered equipment. We drop down to rubble level, following his across the mess. The boots stop at a certain spot, stand still. The cloak whips off his shoulders, drops to the ground at his feet. A low rolling sound catches our ear, and a metallic tentacle snakes into the flame. Its claw clamps around the chunk of rubble and lifts it effortlessly out of the way. Another claw comes in, and a third and a fourth, lifting, smashing the rubble, down, searching for something. A hole opens, revealing a smashed chunk of machinery at the bottom. One claw burrows down into the hole. It flicks aside the last few stones, latching around a panel and pries it open, revealing the image refractor still in one piece. The claw gently frees the refractor and lifts it out of the hole. As it emerges, it's struck by a beam of sunlight streaming through the dirty windows. It shoots rainbows in all directions. Follow the refractor now across the rubble to the titanium briefcase. 2 claws unsnap the case. A third lifts it open. The fourth places the refractor gently inside. Snap, snap. The case is locked again. The hand cuffed to Octavius's wrist. Cut to exterior Midtown Street day. The briefcase, still attached to the wrist, moves down a crowded street in Midtown. Octavius heads into a large office building. Remaining behind, we tilt up all the way up to the top, where a new spectacular glass structure is being built atop the building. Its glass roof slanted at a dramatic 45-degree angle. Interior corridor day. The briefcase glides towards a pair of desks at the end of the plush carpeted hallway. An assistant looks up.
Go in, he's expecting you.
The briefcase walks past the assistants and pushes open a heavy wooden door. Interior spectacular office day. Octavius and the briefcase enter a stunning office with a view of the most of the tri-state area. The owner of the office stands behind his desk, his back to us. He hears Octavius enter and turns around, hanging up the phone. It's Harry Osborn.
Dr. Octavius, have a seat.
I prefer to stand.
Then stand. That it?
Do we have an agreement?
If the refractor can do what you say it can.
I'll have the laboratory precisely as I specified.
You will.
An unlimited research budget.
Provided no one else is aware of our arrangement, I need hardly tell you, Doctor, our government's response to my involvement in this would not be friendly. Am I the only one you called?
Of course. They're just a handful of entities with access to the money and resources I need to finish my work.
May I see it?
Octavius unlocks the briefcase and sets it on Harry's desk. He dials a combination, unsnaps it, and removes the image refractor. He hands it to Harry, who bends over, holds it up to the bulb of his desk lamp. While looking at its strange light, he notices something. The dangling crystal lobes are hanging from the ornate lamps on his desk look strikingly similar to the refractor itself.
Well, one last time. Can you promise me you contacted no one else?
I'm not a fool.
Good. I'm glad. You know, Dr. Octavius, people have called me a lot of things in the past few years.
He pushes a button under the front of his desk.
But I will never be called a traitor.
The doors of the office suddenly burst open and the place is filled with a dozen government agents, guns drawn. They shouted at Octavius to freeze, scream out in their ID, FBI, NSA, CIA, take command of the room.
Osborn!
Harry looks down, but he's really looking at the desk lamp again.
Dr. Octavius, you're under arrest for treason, murder, and theft of classified government property.
Mr. Osborn, do you have the refractor? All yours.
He leans over his desk and hands the refractor to the agent, but when he pulls his hand back past the desk lamp, we notice that one of the dangling crystal lobes is missing. There's just a bare hook where it used to be, and Harry Osborn's left hand is disappearing into the pocket of his suit pants.
Move your coat and get up against the wall. I need to check you for arms.
Octavius raises an eyebrow. Near the window, FBI Agent 2 is about to drop the refractor into a sealed evidence jar when a metal claw shoots into the frame, clamps around his wrist.
Oh, I'm armed.
Lots of arms. Exterior Oscorp building day. From outside the Oscorp building, we hear a hall of gunfire erupt from the top floor and a sudden whip pan over to exterior Midtown Street day, a cafe down the street where Peter and MJ are having coffee in the window, unaware of the nearby trouble.
What are you so angry for?
What are you so clueless for? Why did you have to bring her to my show?
I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking. You said to bring a friend.
Gosh, she has blonde hair, doesn't she? And so much of it.
I can only say I'm sorry so many times.
Say it again.
Well, I don't understand this. You're seeing somebody. You practically told me you were in love with Jeff.
There is no Jeff, you dope. I made him up. I was trying to make you jealous. Thought you'd figure it out.
How am I supposed to?
I don't know. You're just supposed to. Okay, use your spider sense or something.
Would you stop with those cracks unless there's something you want to ask me?
Fine. I'll come out and ask you.
Peter looks up at a clock. It's exactly 1 o'clock.
Remember, maybe you can fool anyone else in the city, but I've known you since you were 6 years old, Peter Parker, and you will never be able to fool me, so don't even think of lying.
He looks out the window, staring at something.
Peter.
Okay.
Peter Parker, are you in reality? Hey, this is serious, okay? You could at least look at me.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that Spider-Man?
She turns stunned and follows his gaze to the building across the street. On the rooftop, Spider-Man races along the edge of the building. He stops to survey the city, getting his bearings, and runs to the edge of the roof and leaps across the narrow alley to the building next door, doing a not bad flip. He double hops the landing, but otherwise it's fairly convincing. MJ looks back at Peter aghast, then up at the building again. More people on the sidewalk have stopped and are pointing, shouting, and waving to Spider-Man. On the rooftop, Spider-Man gives them a friendly wave, jumps to a flagpole just over his head, and does a quick loop around it in the cafe.
Wow, cool. Sorry, what were you saying?
Nothing.
Peter Parker, Spider-Man, right. Suddenly, we move in fast on Peter's eyes, which widen as his spider senses kick in and everything around him slows to a crawl. Peter slows too, but still moves, turns his head to search for the impending doom he feels around him. Out the window of the cafe, Spider-Sense sees cars racing down the street, terrified pedestrians running in the same direction. In slow motion, something terrible is coming. Spider-Sense glides over to the other window, seeing more people running for their lives, and then it sees what they're running from. A car tumbling down the street end over end in super slow-mo, headed straight for the front window of the cafe. Back in real time, Peter snaps to action, dives towards MJ, tackling her and the table and flying out of the way just as the car smashes through the window. They hit the ground as the car passes overhead, one lucky tumble away from crushing them both. Peter turns and looks to where the car is still headed over near the counter. An unlucky waitress stands directly in its path. Rolling on his back with MJ's view temporarily obscured, Peter stretches out a wrist, fires, not a web exactly, but a web ball, round, dense, concentration of web fluid that sails straight at the waitress, smacks her in the back, and knocks her out of the way a moment before the car smashes through the far wall on the cafe. Still on his back, Peter pulls himself and MJ down as flat to the floor as possible as the rear tires of the car pass just inches over their heads. Finally, the car comes to a rest, upside down, tires still spinning.
Are you okay?
Yeah, are you?
But before Peter can answer, the low thump draws their attention to the street. Thump. Again, from somewhere down the block, no more running and screaming outside. Thump. Whatever it is, it's louder and closer.
What in the...
Peter walks slowly towards the shadowed window just as thump, crunch. Whatever it is pounds into the sidewalk right outside the window, crunching into the cement from far above. It's the claw end of a tentacle. 1, 2, 3 more tentacles crunch into the sidewalk, walking past the cafe like stilts. And what are those stilts holding up?
They put all the freaks on one island and we live on it.
As the tentacle stilts pass, Peter leaps out through the shattered window. Exterior Chaos Block Day, Peter looks in the direction of the tentacle stilts went, down the street and see Otto Octavius. And from now, he is truly Dr. Octopus, stalking down the street just like Japanese monster, hurling cars out of its way, sending terrified citizens scurrying in all directions. His body is suspended a good 10 feet off the ground, held aloft by 2 tentacle stilts while he uses the other to wreak havoc. The police car screeches around a corner in front of him, sirens blowing. A tentacle shoots out fast, wraps the car, and hurls it across the street into another car, which bursts into flame. MJ rips out of the cafe, sees the horrible chaos, but she also sees something else, something wonderful and comforting up on the roof of the building across the street. Spider-Man, or in truth, Spider-Man.
It's okay. It's Spider-Man.
But he's not acting very Spider-Manly. He's just standing there on the rooftop staring at Ock in horror. And now we get the good look at him. We notice he's kind of paunchy. Peter shouts to him.
Get out of there. Are you crazy?
Yeah, he's probably a little crazy. Now others notice the guy too. They're all turn and point, shout their pleas to Spider-Man. Protect us, Spider-Man. Kick his ass, Spidey. That sort of thing. Dr. Octopus turns and sees Spider-Man, who starts backing away. Ock stalks over to him, and man, on those stilts, can he move fast.
You're in trouble, creep.
But Spider-Man isn't quite so convinced. He holds up his hands in horror and self-defense and starts to scream like a girl. SWAT. With one effortless swipe, Doc Ock knocks Spider-Man right off the roof, sends him flying across the street where he crash lands in a stack of empty cardboard boxes. Doc Ock laughs maniacally and closes in for the kill, but more policemen and FBI agents appear behind him and open fire. He turns to dispatch them and knock their guns away.
Why so trigger happy? Did I cross against the light?
The bullets fly, sparking off the whirling tentacles up in the air with Octavius. Bullets ting and ricochet near him. One of these is going to hit soon.
I can see only the hostage.
Interior Captain Stacy's car day. A few blocks away, Captain Stacy is driving with Gwen, headed somewhere else. When they hear distant sirens, his brow furrows. The police car races past them and turns a corner in the direction of the trouble. Captain Stacy slows as they near the corner. Dad, it's your day off.
Police captains don't have days off, sweetie.
He looks at her, asking for her okay. She sighs and smiles. Guess we can have lunch tomorrow.
Atta girl.
He hauls the car around the corner. Exterior KS block day. MJ races to the fallen Spider-Man, throws boxes off him.
Oh my God, are you all right?
Spider-Man groans, bruised and bloody, but still alive.
Why didn't you fight back?
Spider-Man starts to cry.
You're not him. You're a fake.
She grabs hold of the mask and rips it off, revealing the gymnast Peter saw on the street earlier, the one he paid the money to. Busted.
No. Toughest $20 I ever made.
The shadow falls over MJ, a tentacled shadow. She looks up, sees the crazed figure of Doc Ock towering over her, a captured cop waving around one tentacle behind him.
Look at me. Look at me. Look at me now.
I'll pass.
She darts into the street. Ock gives chase. MJ serpentines through the wreckage of the street, chased by Ock on the tent stilts. They crunch into the pavement just behind her own feet. He's gaining on her. Won't be long before he reaches her. A huge claw smashes into the ground right in front of her. She stops to avoid it. She tries to get back the other way, but another claw smashes into the ground behind her. Now she's trapped, nowhere to go. She falls to the ground. The first claw lowers towards her, ready to scoop her into a steely grasp. When Oz is distracted by something flying in towards him from the side, something red and blue and from a web. The real Spider-Man smashes into Doc's chest, both beaks first, sending him flying over backwards. All four tentacles slam into the ground to anchor him, and Doc Ock's body flips over backwards and hangs there, suspended upside down in midair. Spider-Man lands on the wall of the building behind him, also upside down. He turns to MJ, who is looking up at him, awestruck.
You hang out with the wrong men.
What can I tell you? They find me.
Can I give you some advice?
I could use it.
Now is not the time. A tentacle claw smashes into the brick next to Spider-Man's head.
Run.
Okay, that's some good advice. Don't have to tell her twice. She takes off down the block. Ock still upside down between his tentacles, screaming rage, and throws another tentacle punch at Spider-Man, who dodges it. Now Spider-Man and Doc Ock are face to face, both upside down.
You're ugly times 8.
Smash! Another tentacle punch. Spidey pivots, starts crawling up the side of the building. Doc rights himself, growls in anger up at Spider-Man. Crunch. Doc Ock raises a tentacle and digs into the side of the building, but this time he's not throwing a claw punch at Spider-Man. He's grabbing for purchase. Crunch, crunch. 2 more grabs, and Octavius starts pulling himself up the side of the building, chasing Spider-Man as Spidey backs away. Octavius starts climbing faster. Now he gets close enough and starts throwing claw punches at Spider-Man, who dodges them nimbly, leaping from ledge to ledge. He comes another tentacle, and this one's got a whirling drill at the end of it. Whoop! Spider-Man leaps out of the way and dives towards the ground, landing beneath his foe on the side of the building. He shoots a web up. It catches Doc Ock right in the chest, and Spidey gives him an almighty tug. Ock is ripped off the side of the building. He falls right past Spider-Man, headed for the pavement. Nothing can save him now. He's going to be jelly up the sidewalk, all right, but all of a sudden, his tentacles whirl around in front of him onto the sidewalk and plant into the ground, telescoping like shock absorbers, cushioning his fall. Ock whirls around up at Spider-Man, enraged. He leaps at the wall and starts double timing it up the side of the building. Interior family apartment day. In the living room of an apartment of the building, a family screams in horror as the tentacle claws burst through their outer wall, one after another, making their way up. We move up with them, passing through the ceiling and coming out. Interior single woman's apartment day. An apartment above, this one occupied by a single woman reading the newspaper. She screams too as the tentacles are bursting through the wall right behind the chair she's sitting in. We keep moving up with the tentacles through the ceiling again and into an interior Japanese family apartment day. The apartment above occupied by a Japanese family sitting down to eat lunch. They scream too. Well, no shit. The mother shouts at father in Japanese, which is subtitled so we can read it.
We moved from Tokyo to get away from this.
Can't get away from it anywhere. The tentacles continue up, and finally we cut to exterior rooftop day. The roof of the building. Spider-Man somersaults into frame, landing on the roof and peeking over the edge. The scary tentacle bug, aka Doc Ock, races up the side of the building, a truly freaky image. He plants his tentacle claws in the cornice and flips himself over the roof. Doc Ock and Spider-Man square off high above the city. Exterior chaos day. Captain Stacy comes running up the building at the apartment building, flanked by cops. He looks up, sees the distant images of Doc Ock and Spider ducking in and out up there. He looks around, seeing a crowd forming to watch the match.
Get all these people back. Clear the area.
Exterior rooftop day. Spider-Man shoots a web strand, which wraps around two of Ock's tentacles, binds them together, while Ock struggles to free them. Spider-Man somersaults over them, lands right in front of Ock, and throws a right across that catches the doctor across the chin. Ock groans, strains with all his might, and rips his tentacles apart, tearing the webbing to shreds.
My webs tore right through them.
Now Ox are all free, and they snap around in midair, turning to catch Spider-Man in their multiple grasp. Spidey sees this coming and reaps straight up just as the tentacles close in on the spot he was. He lands on the side of the tall brick chimney on the roof of the building, clings there for a second, and then falls. He crunches to the gravel rooftop.
No, not now.
Doc Ock starts towards him. Spider-Man rolls over onto his back and raises his wrist to fire a double web strand at Doc Ock. But only one wrist fires and the other does not.
So this is the mighty Spider-Man.
Closes on the fallen Spider-Man, who leaps to his feet. Exterior chaos block day. Captain Stacy grabs a radio from the officer nearby, barks into it.
Call in a helicopter.
Yes, let them fight. Maybe they'll finish each other off.
No, they'd injure innocent people.
Exterior rooftop day. The claw end of one of Doc Ock's tentacles retracts and four long, shiny blades push into place. They start to spin and whir, and deadly propeller heading straight for Spider-Man. Spidey leaps to his feet and points his wrist up to the top of the chimney, flicks his fingers, and a web shoots out, sticking to the top of the chimney.
Yes.
Top. He soars out of the way just as the whirling blades churn into the rooftop where he was just moments ago. These things are powerful rotators. Doc Ock turns, slams the spinning rotator into the base of the chimney. Chunks of brick or mortar fly everywhere. He's tearing right through the stone. Exterior chaos block day. Down on the sidewalk, more onlookers push forward, pointing up at the rooftop.
Said get these people back. Gwen, don't come any closer.
Exterior rooftop day. On the side of the chimney, Spider-Man sways. Beneath him, Doc Ock is tearing away at the brick with all four tentacles, ripping the structure apart. Chunks of stone fly everywhere, and from this vantage point, Spider-Man can see down to the street below, where so many people are clustered.
Wait, stop.
With a vicious roar, Ock's tentacles rip the last of the support for the chimney, and it begins to topple. Spider-Man falls, shouting as he tumbles to the rooftop.
Look out!
Exterior chaos block day. Down below, Captain Stacy hears Spider-Man's cry. He looks up and sees the wreckage of the chimney crumbling off the side of the building, falling towards the sidewalk. He looks down, following the path of the fallen stone to the sidewalk, where a kid stands directly in its path.
Look out, son, look out.
As everyone else turns the other way, Captain Stacy lunges forward. The brick falls closer. There's a split second away from the ground. Captain Stacy dives towards the child, knocking him with both hands extended, sending the boy flying out of harm's way and into the wall of the building. But his dive wasn't far enough to clear the wreckage himself, and he crunches to the ground short of the building and directly in the path of the falling rubble. Exterior rooftop day. Spider-Man watches from above, horrified, as Captain Stacy is buried underneath the fallen chimney.
Captain Stacy.
Whether his webs are going to work or not, Spider-Man hurls himself off the building. Behind him, Doc Ock smiles a malevolent smile. On a simultaneous cue, all his tentacles retract quickly into his body into four metal ports on the metal corset fused to his skin. The ports twist shut. He zips his cloak up over them and walks calmly towards the roof door. In midair, Spider-Man half swings and half falls down the side of the building. Exterior chaos block day. Down on the ground, Spider-Man is the first to reach Captain Stacy. He tears the wreckage off him, hurling huge stones with his bare hands.
Captain Stacy.
He uncovers Captain Stacy's unmoving body. Gwen races forward, bursting through the crowd. Ted! Spider-Man turns, sees Gwen. She looks at him. Get away from him!
He's got to be alive. He's got to.
Captain Stacy moans. He is still alive. Spider-Man picks him up with his arms as cops press forward, guns drawn, screaming at him to put him down. Spider-Man looks around at the masses of cars, wreckage, throngs of people all clogging the streets.
You won't get to the hospital in time. There's only one way.
With that, he turns and runs up the side of the building, cradling Captain Stacy's body in his arms. Gwen screams in rage. Several cops aim their guns, but the first officer stops them.
Don't shoot! Don't shoot! You'll hit the captain!
Exterior rooftop day. Spider-Man comes out of the rooftop with Captain Stacy in his arms, runs to the edge, and leaps to the rooftop next door. Exterior, several blocks away day. A large red cross is painted on the roof of a building, the helipad of a nearby hospital. Tilting up fast from that, we see Spider-Man approaching in the distance, leaping from rooftop to rooftop, Captain Stacy cradled in his arms. He lands just in front of us, and Captain Stacy moans.
Put me down.
We're at the hospital. I'll get you inside.
It's too late. It's too late for me.
It isn't.
Put me down. Tell you something, Peter. Put me down.
Spider-Man stops in his tracks, stunned at hearing his name. He sets Captain Stacy down gently.
Peter.
Spider-Man removes his mask, reveals his face.
How did you know?
You told me.
I?
Your face doesn't lie, Peter.
You didn't tell anyone. You didn't say a word.
Gwen, be good to...
He trails off. Captain Stacy dies, and we pull back slowly from the roof of the hospital. Cut to the Daily Bugle. Whirls at us a picture of Spider-Man holding Captain Stacy's body in his arm at the front page under the biggest, reddest letters we've ever seen. The headline is just two vile words: cop killer. Cut to interior Jameson's office night. The front page is ripped from the hands of Jonah Jameson by the unusually mild-mannered Peter Parker. This time he's livid and Jameson is stunned. Robbie tries to stand between them. The front page isn't official yet. It's mocked up on a piece of foam core.
How could you? How dare you? You can't run that headline.
Calm down, Peter. It's not official yet.
It is now.
That's just about the worst thing you could possibly say about Spider-Man.
Maybe he deserves it. You ever think that?
Maybe. You're about to accuse him when all you've got to go on is maybe. You weren't there.
Neither were you.
Peter, please calm down. For record, I agree with you. I do, Jonah. This is low, even for us. If you just add the question mark like I asked.
A question mark won't make a bit of difference. It'll be too late. Once you throw those words at somebody, they stick. You don't know the damage you'll do.
What do you care?
I can't stand this anymore. I can't stand having everything I do turn into something ugly, something horrible.
You're losing it, kid. This one's not even your picture.
It might as well have been. I've had it with all of this.
Parker, maybe what you need is another line of work.
Peter looks at him, thinking very seriously about that.
Maybe I do.
Run it.
Exterior Flatiron Building night. Enraged, Peter Parker storms out of the Flatiron Building, home of the Daily Bugle. He walks past the mouth of an alley, hands shoved in his pockets, staring down at the pavement. We stop, let him pass as we notice the shadowy figure lurking in the mouth of the alley, the same figure that watched Peter and Gwen through the window of the coffee shop. Peter passes the shadowy figure, waits a moment, then steps out of the alley and follows him. Cut to exterior city street day. A construction worker rants at the camera.
Too far. That the creeper went too far this time. I've had it with his Azul.
Is that Mario? Exterior street day. A cop talks to his partner and to the camera.
I told you about this guy. I knew something like this was going to happen.
Like a jobs ain't hot enough.
Exterior downtown club night. A young woman living the Pierce lifestyle shakes her head in front of a downtown club.
I used to love him. I I had this hugs fight with my dad about him, but that was practically why I moved out. Or huge fight. Oh my god. No, man.
Interior cab day. A cabbie looks back at us over the divider in his cab.
Wise up, he's a friggin' vigilante.
Exterior Lincoln Center night. Some operagoers in black ties are coming out of the Lincoln Center.
A task force. The man needs to appoint a task force dedicated solely to his immediate apprehension.
Interior City Council meeting night. The City Council argues in a packed committee room. The chairwoman bangs her gravel.
Councilman, order. Could we possibly debate just one of the motions denouncing Spider-Man at a time?
Exterior fire escape night. Out on the fire escape late at night, a lonely teenager in a rough part of town looks out at the empty, wet streets, a siren echoing in the distance. His eyes are big and sad.
Spidey Man! What happened, man?
Interior cab night. That same cabbie looks back at us over the divider in his cab. It's nighttime now.
You want the truth? I'll give you the truth. It's cold and it's hard, but it's right on me.
Exterior rooftop night. The cabbie's words carry over the image of Spider-Man crouching alone on a building cornice in the heart of Midtown.
The truth is, we don't need him anymore.
Spider-Man lowers his head in defeat. Cut to interior elevator day. Peter stands in an elevator in a dark suit and tie, staring straight ahead. Aunt May stands next to him, also in somber clothes.
I don't know if I can do it, Aunt May.
You'd be surprised what you can do.
The elevator door opens and they step into the hallway of an apartment building. They approach a door at the end of the hall. Peter takes a deep breath and opens it. Interior Stacy apartment day. The Stacy apartment is packed with mourners in dark suits and dresses. Their hushed voices tell us that this is a wake. Peter is practically shaking. He's having a very hard time. This is all too familiar. Aunt May puts a hand on his shoulder and he looks at her.
Losing someone, it doesn't get any easier, does it?
No, dear. It hurts terribly and you never, ever get used to it. But you grow. Oh, Peter, I just don't know of any path to growth except through pain.
Across the room, Peter sees a kid sitting by himself at one end of the big kitchen dining room table, playing with action figures. It's Billy Stacy, 8-year-old, who stole his French fries at dinner. Peter takes a deep breath and crosses the room. He sits in an empty chair next to Billy, who looks up at him briefly, then back down at his action figures. He's got about 27 of them and all carefully set up on the tabletop. He's just placing the last one in with the rest. Peter doesn't just say anything, just watches. Billy bends down to get the table at eye level, then reaches out and flicks one of the action figures off. Makes a falling sound, then a splash as it hits the floor. Peter smiles. Billy does another one, then Peter does one.
You gotta make it go splash. Down there's the river.
Peter does another, this time with a splash sound. After they do a couple more, Peter clears his throat, speaks very softly.
My Uncle Ben, he was like my dad to me.
They knew a few more action figures.
He could really throw fly balls. He'd throw them so high they used to scare me. Like I thought they were coming down at me about 1,000,000 miles an hour.
A couple more action figures. Now there's only a dozen left.
I loved it though. And there was this one time we were playing catch and it started to get dark and Uncle Ben said it was time to go home. And I said three more good ones because that meant I had to catch him. And after I caught 2, I started to drop them on purpose because I didn't want that game to ever end. But then he threw a really high one, kind of far from me, and I started to run for it. I knew it'd be an awesome catch if I could make it, and I just had to if I could, but that didn't mean the game was over, but I couldn't stop myself.
Billy finally looks at him.
So I caught it, and the game was over, and we had to go home.
Billy looks away. Bad ending. He knocks another action figure off the table. Now there's only 3 left.
But that game of catch was so perfect, I still dream about it sometimes. It ended, but it never went away.
Billy takes no comfort in that. He knocks off another action figure. Now there's only 2, and one of them is Spider-Man.
One time my dad said if I ever got lost, he'd throw everybody in New York into the river one by one until I was the only person left in New York, and that's how he'd find me.
He knocks the Spider-Man action figure off the table, and we look at the only remaining one. For the first time, we notice it's in the uniform of a New York City police officer. Billy picks it up and holds it gently between his fingers.
Who's gonna find me if I get lost now?
Peter puts an arm around him and whispers in his ear.
I will.
Exterior balcony day. Out on a tiny balcony, Gwen Stacy looks out at the city while the wake continues in the living room behind her. She's talking to someone we can't see. Since I was old enough to understand words, my mother and father told me something like this might happen one day. I was more scared than he was. To him, it was just part of the job. Here's your health insurance. Here's your vacation time. And oh, by the way, could be killed at any moment. We all knew it was like we knew it was our last name. But what were we supposed to do? Try to love him less so it wouldn't hurt as much if we lost him? No. There's never an excuse not to love. I don't feel sorry for my father, and I don't feel sorry for myself. The one I feel sorry for is Spider-Man. She turns and looks at the person next to her. It's Peter.
Why?
He has to live with himself, what he's done, and who that makes him. He must be terrified. See, I know who I am, and I know who my father was. She looks at the city, the wind blowing through her long hair. But I don't think Spider-Man has the faintest idea. Peter looks at her. She's absolutely right and doesn't know that her words are reaching the very person they're meant for. I'm glad you're with me now, Peter. She steps forward and puts his arms around her. She sags into him, buries her face in his shoulder and sobs quietly. Peter's eyes are full of pain and confusion. Cut to exterior outdoor plaza nighttime. A pair of bulky black hard-soled shoes click across the polished stone of a deserted plaza. One of the shoes is untied. The feet stop, and so does the portentous music. The figure doesn't bend down. Instead, a metal claw whirls into frame and right side. Then another metal claw snakes in from the left. The claw moves with alarming dexterity, tying the shoelace in just a few seconds. Then the claws retract. The feet start walking again. The portentous music resumes. That would be really helpful when I get old. The black shoes reach another pair of shoes. These a very expensive pair of woven calfskin loafers. A soft, cultured, accented voice inquires of the black shoes.
You have brought the device with you?
Otto Octavius sneers from behind his black sunglasses.
Of course I haven't. Do you think I'm a fool?
A foreign man, the owner of the expensive shoes, smiles ingratiatingly. He is indeterminately ethnicity. Wow, there's too many hard words in that one sentence.
I can assure you, Octavius, neither I nor the parties I represent dare underestimate you.
What did your people say to my terms?
All acceptable, of course, but money is unimportant to them. Their interests are purely geopolitical.
And politics is of no concern to me. I'm a scientist.
And when your research and development are completed, you will have objections to the manner in which your work is used?
None.
Even if the use is of a, how shall one say it, destructive nature. And if the target of such destruction should be to choose an example at random, the United States of America.
There are no such things as countries, only truth. All knowledge is good, and whatever it unleashes is natural and inevitable, even destruction.
The foreign man smiles.
Bring the refractor to the top of the transatlantic at 9 p.m. on the 11th. A helicopter will be waiting to take it, and you to stay within friendly borders.
There are no borders.
Cutting back very wide, we see where we are at last. Octavius and the foreign man are standing in the middle of the deserted Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza under the flapping flags of the United Nations.
May I say I find your lack of patriotism refreshing.
Cut to exterior street night, late. Peter walks home alone, tie loosened, eyes downcast. It's wet. Simmering night in the streets, manhole covers leaking steam like the whole city's about to blow. Falling behind Peter, we notice that what he does not, the shadowy figure is following him again. Peter rounds a corner and stops suddenly. He cocks his head, turning it towards the source of something he heard. There it is again, a scream. Instinctively, he takes a step towards it, reaches up to unbutton his shirt, but he stops himself, torn. Why bother? What's the point? But then he hears the scream again, louder this time, and he can't stop himself. He walks briskly towards the mouth of an alley and darts down it. The shadowy figure follows. We stay with the shadowy figure now, reaching the mouth of the alley, turning the corner, taking a few tentative steps into the alley and hiding behind a dumpster. Just ahead of us, we have a slightly obstructed view of Peter as he hurriedly changes out of his clothes. The shadowy figure presses forward as close as he dares. And as he moves forward, just barely edges into the pool of light, we see the face of the shadowy figure for the first time. It's Harry Osborn. Harry stares, rapt, at the place where the man is removing his street clothes, revealing the Spider-Man costume beneath. The man has his back to Harry. There's a chance it could be someone else. You never know. Harry lost sight of Peter for a few seconds after he rounded the corner. Harry's desperate to see his face. He adjusts his position to get a better look. His foot bumps a tin can on the ground, and Peter turns at the sound. He's wearing the costume now, but no mask yet. Without question, Peter Parker. Harry's jaw drops. He covers his mouth in horror. Peter pulls out the mask and slides it over his face. Harry shakes his head. This can't be true. This can't be happening. Peter raises his wrist, aims it at the nearby building, shoots out a web, and lifts off the ground. Harry staggers out into the middle of the alley, staring up between the gap in the buildings. He sees Spider-Man land on the side of the building, cling there for a moment, then shoot out another web and spring away into the canyons of the city. Harry stares in shock, rage, and dismay. In the distance, we hear the scream again. Exterior Washington Square night, and cut to its source, a woman in Washington Square Park. A guy is grabbing her in a way she doesn't like. She's struggling with him when all of a sudden a web splats into the guy's back and he's yanked away from her. Spider-Man lands on the ground between them, does two black flips over towards the guy, ending with a double foot kick into the guy's chin. The guy keels over, smacking his head on the pavement. The woman screams again, races over, and squats down next to the guy, who groans.
Paul, are you okay?
Forget about him. Are you okay?
The woman leaps up and starts pounding Spider-Man with her fists.
We're actors. We were rehearsing. What is the matter with you, you freak?
I was just trying to...
Who asked you? Police! Police, help!
I thought...
Why don't you just give it up before you get someone else killed?
Close on Spider-Man's face, very close, moving in tighter and tighter until it's just his eyes. Those opaque white jack-o'-lantern eyes with flames licked up to the very center of them. Exterior dark alley night, but there's not symbolic. Those were real flames. The mask is lying on top of a pile of trash in the barrel in the alley. A small fire burns in the barrel and the mask is consumed by it. Despite the rain that has started to fall on this awful night, pulling back, we see the rest of the costume just draped over the side of the barrel. Maybe the fire will get it. Maybe it won't. That doesn't matter to Peter Parker anymore. He walks away from us out of the mouth of the alley. He's back in the street clothes, head hung low, hands shoved in his pockets, heedless of the driving rain that slants across the city. He rejoins the stream of ordinary people on the street and disappears into the crowd, leaving Spider-Man behind. Cut to exterior Central Park night, still night, even later. Harry Osborn walks alone in Central Park. He wanders alone as rain slicked past a pack of teenagers, loud and young and angry. This can't be the safest place to be right now, but Harry barely notices them. He sags into a bench.
Pete.
He forward, drops his head into his hands in agony.
Peter, not you.
He sits back, and moving back with him, we notice there's suddenly someone sitting next to him. Someone who's got her so impossibly fast, it's practically inhuman. This isn't a teenager, and it isn't a park ranger. It's Norman Osborn, Harry's father, Harry's dead father, sitting next to his son, staring at him.
Hello, Harry.
How could he do it? My friend. My best friend.
Killed your father. Yes. Now you know. I've been waiting, Harry. Waiting a very long time for you to see the truth.
I don't know what to do.
Yes, you do.
I'm not like you, Dad. I'm not as smart as you are, not as strong. Oh, God, I don't know what to do.
You can act like a man.
I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. Never apologize. You've done so well, Harry. I've been watching you, you know. Seeing you run Oscorp at half the age I was.
I'm working on something incredible now. I've got my hands on a device that could make Oscorp more money than it's made in its entire history. Everyone's after it. The government.
I know. I'm proud, my boy. Proud of the job you're doing.
I did it for you, Dad. I wanted you to be proud.
You're just beginning. There's family business yet unfinished.
What do I do?
Grow up, Harry. School's out. Time to face your responsibilities. Become the man I know you can be. Then we'll talk again.
Tell me, show me. Anything, I'll do it.
Harry hears a sound behind him. More crazy teenagers. He turns to check it out.
I know you will.
And when he turns back, his father has disappeared just as mysteriously as he's arrived. Harry stands, pulls his overcoat tight around him, and walks off into the dark wilds of the park. Cut to interior Dr. Connor's classroom day. Peter Parker gets up from his desk in Dr. Connor's classroom and shuffles towards the door, undeniably down, as he passes Dr. Connor's desk.
Peter, is there something the matter? You haven't been yourself for the last few days.
I'm all right.
Well, this isn't. It's your work on transfer RNA, hardly your best effort. I'd like to see you do it again, please.
Sorry. Okay.
It was difficult for me to believe that that was actually your work. It was so slipshod, so uninvolved. May I ask why?
I've been behind. I had a hard time on electromagnetic permeability of iron atoms.
Basic electrical engineering should not be one of our more daunting requirements, Mr. Parker, especially for someone like you.
I guess I've just had a lot on my mind.
You know, Peter, I'll bet you're the sort of guy who's been hearing about how smart you are, hearing about your gifts for as far back as you can remember. Am I right?
I guess.
Well, here's the part they never told you. Gift. It's a terrible word because nothing is given to you. What you have wasn't free at all. You paid for it. And sometimes the price is very high, impossibly high. It might seem at times, but whatever gifts you've been given or saddled with, they're not yours to do with as you please or to ignore. You don't own them, Peter. You care for them because with knowledge comes duty.
With great power, great responsibility.
That's another way to put it.
What if you never asked for the power in the first place?
Cut to interior restaurant night, a popular, inexpensive restaurant downtown. MJ sits at the table, a tense smile on her face.
I'm so glad we finally did this.
We pull back to find Eric, the handsome actor from her soap opera. He's sitting next to her at the table, his arm draped casually around her shoulders. Across the table, Peter looks at MJ, but can't take his eyes off Eric, that casual arm of his.
Yeah, this is really great.
Pulling back from him, we see Gwen Stacy beside him, her fingers laced affectionately through his on top of the table. I've been bugging Pete to get everybody together. I've heard so much about you all. Across the table, MJ smiles back through gritted teeth, staring at Gwen and those affectionate fingers of hers. Now, pulling to the side of MJ, Harry Osborn comes into focus. He's staring at MJ, who's staring at Gwen, who's staring at Peter, who's staring at MJ.
Well, I guess we're all happy. Happy, happy, happy.
He takes a drink of an ill-advised scotch. A well-manicured woman's hand comes into frame and caresses the side of his face. Pulling back yet again, we see Harry's with Stephanie, a raven-haired model in her early 20s.
Should we tell them, Harry?
Was what?
Yeah, what's going on?
Harry looks dark, brooding, even more than usual. For a second, it looks like he might hit. Harry?
Oh, yeah, why not? We don't have any secrets here, right?
He looks around the table. Pretty much nobody meets his eye.
I certainly don't. Stephanie and I are getting married.
Peter and MJ practically fall out of their chairs.
You're what?
Congratulations.
I know. It's only been a month. I love Harry, but you know him. He's crazy. He ain't right when he makes up his mind about something.
When did you decide?
Last night.
Brought this on.
About time to grow up, don't you think? We're not kids anymore. I mean, we're all through with our ridiculous teenage crushes, aren't we?
He's staring straight at MJ, and it's making her uncomfortable.
Say so.
The wedding's this Saturday. I'd like you to be my best man, Pete.
Really?
Well, of course. You've always been such a great friend to me, such a trustworthy friend to my family, haven't you?
Well, yeah.
So then it should be any other way, should it? Unless there's some reason you can think of.
No, of course not. I'd be honored.
The waiter delivers Harry's scotch. Harry scoops it up.
That's it then. Invite everyone you know, and I mean everyone. I know it's short notice, but I want the biggest wedding this town's ever seen. To love.
The others congratulate them, raise their glasses, and clink them together, but Harry's put a touch more force behind his scotch glass than he meant to, and Peter's Coke glass cracks, soaking his hand in soda.
I guess I don't know my own strength.
Cut to interior seedy hotel night. A ratty suitcase sits on the bed in a ratty hotel room somewhere downtown. Someone is packing up, fast, with mechanical help. A clawed arm puts in a pair of shoes, another claw puts in a slack of shirts. Cutting wider, we see Otto Octavius standing in the middle of his seedy hotel, packing up his meager belongings. His tentacles whirl around him, busily putting his things together. The tentacles lift a box of paper and set it to the desk in front of Octavius. He sorts through these more delicately, using his real hands to make sure his notes and research are all in order. He pulls out a small velvet bag, opens the strings on it, and slides its contents into the palm of his hand. It's the most precious of all his belongings, the image refractor itself. Octavius smiles and holds the refractor up to admire it one last time. But as he looks at it, his smile fades as he notices something strange. It looks different. He bolts to his feet, slaps the shades off the desk lamp, and holds the refractor over the bulb. Octavius' eyes pop wide open. He stares in shock at the thing. And we cut abruptly to interior Harry Osborn's office night. Harry Osborn's office and a close shot of the real image refractor held in Harry's own hand as he studies it at the very same moment, a look of determined satisfaction on his face. We move off the real refractor to Harry's desk lamp, which has those crystal globes dangling from it, and we go in close to the empty hook where Harry must have slipped one of the lobes off when the FBI and Octavius weren't looking. And from that, we cut abruptly back to interior seedy hotel night, the phony refractor, the dangly lamp decoration that Octavius holds in his hand in the hotel room, where he has just realized the switch that must have been pulled.
Osborn.
He hurls the phony refractor against the far wall. It smashes into a million pieces.
Osborn.
Octavius loses it. He sweeps everything off the desk with one arm, upends the chair with the other arm, punches a hole in the wall with the other arm, flips over the bed with the other arm, smashes a hole in the ceiling with the other arm, crushes the lamp with the other arm, and crunches 2 holes in the ceiling with the other 2 arms. This guy can really throw a tantrum. Toddlers beware. Nightmares shout through the walls. Some neighbors shout through the walls. Somebody starts pounding on the door, and Octavius shouts wrathfully at the heavens.
Osborn!
Cut to interior Osborn mansion night. Everything turns white as a sheet is flung off the old piece of furniture. Then another sheet, then another as Harry Osborn uncovers the furniture in his father's dusty old mansion, unoccupied these 2 long years since Norman's death. Harry's got a pile of suitcases and packed cardboard boxes beside him. He's moving into the old place. But as the last sheet flies, he stops suddenly, hearing something in the distance, a cackle, an evil, familiar laughter. The Green Goblin's laugh.
Hello?
The cackle comes again, louder.
Who's there?
Who did you expect?
Harry whirls. The voice was coming from behind him, and there it is. Norman Osborn in the mirror this time, the full-length mirror through which Norman spoke to himself when he was going insane. Harry approaches it slowly. In the mirror, his father walks towards him at the same pace.
I've done everything you've said. What now? What do I do now?
You know, I can't tell you. You know, you're going to have to say the words yourself.
I can't.
Say the words!
No.
Say the words!
They've reached a point at which they're almost touching face to face in the mirror. Harry finally looks up at his father.
Spider-Man.
Very good.
Kill Peter.
It's the same thing, isn't it?
I'm not strong enough.
You can be.
I don't know how.
How do you think I was?
I don't know.
Of course you do. You just won't let yourself admit it.
I don't know what you're talking about. I swear
You know who I was.
You were a man, a good man, a strong man.
Do you think? How do you think I became a strong?
I don't know.
Face it, Harry. It's the truth. You know who I was. You knew all along.
No.
Enraged, he hurls a chair at his father's image. The chair smashes into the mirror. Its shards crumble to the floor and reveal a secret room behind the mirror. Interior secret room night. Harry steps into the room, a small dusty chamber piled high with expensive junk, statues from all over the world, paintings, rolled up tapestries, a prototype of the Goblin glider. A what? Harry slides it out from underneath some other things, stares at it in shock. Behind him, a cackle rises up. He whirls. But he's on his own now. He keeps searching. There's a trunk near the glider. He opens it up, finds a neatly stacked case of a dozen pumpkin bombs. Again, the cackle. This time, it makes Henry smile. He keeps searching. He finds a thin metal lab case, pulls it towards him, flicks the latches, and opens the top. His eyes light up. He reaches into the case, pulls something out, and holds it up into the light. It's a test tube filled with a phosphorescent green liquid that glows in a shadowy room, reflected off of Harry's increasingly disturbed features. All around him now, the goblin's evil cackle. Cut to exterior Oscorp building day. A TV reporter speaks to us from outside the Oscorp building, crowded with Natalie-dressed guests heading inside past a throng of media types.
I'm standing outside the Oscorp building in Midtown. Our guests have begun to arrive for what's being called the wedding of the year. Just after sundown, Oscorp's son, CEO Harry Osborn and model Stephanie Malloy will take the vows before a crowd of guests that reads like a who's who of Manhattan society with
Suddenly, the video image is jarred, ends up with the shots of pavement.
hey.
Cutting to film, we see what happened. Jonah Jameson has just arrived and threw a shoulder into the cameraman.
Whoops, sorry about that. Oh, look. Looks like you lost your place in the carpet.
Another cameraman has stepped up to take the first cameraman's place, and he's carrying a camera that says Daily Bugle TV.
Cutthroat, dog eat dog, New York media world, bunch of frogs trying to jar their way to the top of each other.
Jameson turns to Robbie Robertson, who's also headed into the building with Miss Robertson.
And I'm the top frog.
As he passes, we stop at a second TV reporter.
Marks the first use of the spectacular new atrium ballroom, an all-glass structure just completed at the very top of the Oscorp building itself.
The cameraman tilts up and we get a look at the structure that was still under construction last time we saw it. The new construction slants the roof of the building at a rakish 45-degree angle, the top 3 stories all glass. Cut to interior atrium ballroom day. The atrium is even more spectacular inside. Dramatic views of Midtown dominate the room. Through its glass walls, we see an impressive display of Manhattan architecture. A few hundred chairs have been set up for the well-dressed guests who are streaming in to fill them. Huge buffet tables on either side of the room are loaded with pricey food and drink. A small orchestra plays chamber music from one corner of the room. Peter Parker, looking rather uncomfortable in a suit and tie, plays the role of usher, leading guests down the center aisle and helping them to find their seats. At the entrance, he meets Dr. Connors and Mrs. Connors, just arriving and looking rather uncomfortable.
Dr. Connors, Mrs. Connors, you're here.
Are you kidding? I wouldn't miss it for the world. Thank you so much for inviting us.
Thanks a lot, Parker.
Kurt didn't want to come, but I made him.
Beware all enterprises requiring new clothes.
Peter laughs and holds out his arms for Mrs. Connors.
Friend of the bride or groom?
Room.
Tangentially.
Mrs. Connors takes Peter's arm and leads her down the aisle, Dr. Connors walking on the other side of him.
By the way, Peter, calcium.
What's that, sir?
I looked back at my notes from the genetic spider experiment. All the spiders we crossbred were eating a diet rich in calcium. Lots of protein too, but after the transmutation, we put them on glucose and sounds to avoid contaminating the organic data. We changed their diets. That might be why they were losing their powers. If we'd just given them a hamburger and a glass of milk, their strain might have come back immediately. It was so simple. I can't believe I didn't see it at the time.
Okay, thanks.
Hope it helps with whatever you're working on.
Yeah, I guess it would. I don't know. It looks like I just don't need it anymore.
At the back of the atrium, Harry Osborn steps out of the shadows in the back of the atrium, and he's starting to look like Michael Corleone. Looking straight at us, he opens his arms slowly, welcoming us as we draw towards him. Peter moves forward and is folded into Harry's embrace in what could be more natural than a groom being hugged by his best man on the wedding day.
Congratulations, buddy. Good luck.
Luck to you too, Peter Parker.
Peter's brow furrows. What does that mean? At the entrance, when Stacy steps up at the end of the aisle, unescorted, Peter comes up behind her, smiling.
Friend of the bride or groom?
She smiles back and curls her arm around his. Very good friend of the best men, actually. He leads her down the aisle. At the entrance, MJ steps into the on-deck circle with Eric, the handsome actor. MJ looks stunning. She watches Peter walk down the aisle with Gwen, watches him kiss her lightly as he shows her to her seat, watches him turn and walk back towards her. Peter smiles when he sees MJ and he walks to her, emotions swirling through his features.
You look beautiful.
So do you.
Hi, Aaron.
Eric.
That's true.
He holds out his arm for MJ.
May I walk you down the aisle?
Absolutely may.
She takes his arm and they start down the aisle slowly. It seems to take forever, and they want it to. Eric follows behind them. MJ speaks, but softly. This is only for Peter.
Peter, I want to ask you to promise me something.
Well, sure, MJ.
Not a little something, it's a big something.
Anything at all.
It's about Gwen.
Okay.
I think she's falling in love with you.
Oh, come on, MJ. We're just dating.
I can tell. It's something about the way she looks at you, which just... I'm familiar with that look, and I like her. I do, because I can tell she means it. It's almost too late, Peter. That's why I'm telling you this now, and I want you to promise is that you won't let her get close to you. You won't let her fall in love with you, and then you push her away. Don't do that to her.
Somewhere above them, a high-pitched screeching sound rises up softly, barely audible.
MJ, you've got to know, I should have told you. I wanted to tell you the truth, but I couldn't then. Now I can, and I want to. I want to tell you everything. I want you to know.
Peter stops. That screeching sound is a bit louder, and it's following a pattern. Click, screech, click, screech, click, screech. It's still not that loud, though. Could be some equipment somewhere. Still, by the look on Peter's face, his spider sense is going off. MJ looks at him expectantly, waiting for him to finish his sentence, but they've reached the end of the aisle, and Eric is waiting impatiently behind them.
Do you want to talk later?
No, I've got to say this now, or I'm afraid I never will.
He shakes off his spider sense and turns her aside, grabs her by both arms and pulls her close to him, puts his lips right up next to her ear and whispers.
Mary Jane Watson, the truth is,
Okay, that click screech is really loud and is right overhead now. Pulling back rapidly above them, and we see a shadow has fallen over the floor, a dark 8-limbed shadow. Wait, wasn't it 4 before? Oh, 2 arms and 2 legs. Peter looks up, MJ follows his look, and they see Dr. Octopus, spread eagle on the ceiling of the atrium, 3 stories above them, his tentacles flung out wide, a giant mechanical beast ready to descend on them.
Oh, drag.
Smash. Doc Ock flexes all his tentacles at once, shattering the glass roof of the atrium, sending glass and girders flying everywhere. Guests scream, run in all directions. They stream towards the rear door, but tentacles slam into the floor in front of them, blocking it. At a table, a kid is sitting frozen with a full glass of milk, which was halfway to his mouth, staring straight up in shock. Doc Ock hovers over the kid's head, suspended 15 feet off the ground by his fully extended tentacles, and roars to the room.
Osborn!
Near Peter, a girder is toppling over towards an old couple who can't get out of the way fast enough. Peter reacts instinctively, rolling behind an overturned table and shooting web strands at them, but nothing comes out.
Oh no.
The girder is still toppling. Peter snaps into action the old-fashioned way. He backbends right off the ground, which takes him halfway towards the couple, then does a handspring as he lands and sails into the air again. He lands just in front of the couple and hauls them to safely as the girder smashes through the buffet table. MJ saw the whole thing. She furrows her brow. Her suspicions about him, which Peter went so much trouble to erase, began to return. The crowd surges towards the elevators, but before they can arrive, 2 tentacles smash through the doors. The crowd screams and falls back. Peter looks at his wrist, desperate. He sees the terrified kid with the milk still in his hand. Peter practically pounces on the kid and grabs the milk.
You mind?
And guzzles it. Back at the elevator, Ock's tentacles reach inside the shaft. 2 laser drills wind to life, and they slice through the elevator cables like butter. Nobody's getting out that way. Ox turned to the room.
Osborn, where are you?
In a side hallway, Peter rolls to a relative cover and instinctively starts to unbutton his shirt, which reveals his Mets t-shirt. Peter curses himself, remembering he has, of course, burned his costume. He sneaks a peek back out at the atrium where Ock is wading through the crowd, ranting, searching for Harry Osborn. Peter's tempted to race out there uncostumed, but his eyes flit around the room rapidly. There's Gwen, there's MJ, there's Dr. O'Connor's, there's Jonah Jameson and Robbie and Aunt May. There's everyone he knows and TV cameras to boot. He turns, sees a window beside him, races to it, looks down at the street below and zooms in on it fast. It's Broadway, lined with souvenir shops. Peter's eyes light up. He looks to his right to see a window washing rig suspended beside the window. His eyes zoom in on the rig's cable, which stretches down to street level. Back in the atrium, Doc Ock is wrecking mayhem when Harry Osborn steps forward from the crowd.
Leave them alone. I don't know what you want.
Ock turns and sees him. He drops the buffet table and turns towards Harry. Exterior Broadway dusk, as darkness begins to fall, and a screaming sound comes from above, turning the heads of a few passerbys. They look up just in time to see a blur race overhead. It's Peter in street clothes, clinging to the window washing cable. He lands hard on the other side of the street and dashes inside a souvenir shop. We hold on the window display, big sign, a few costumes, just in time for Halloween. Interior atrium ballroom dusk, under darkening skies, Doc Ock towers over Harry Osborn as terrified wedding guests continue to run in all directions.
What do you want?
What you stole from me. The refractor.
Ock smashes a tentacle through the floor between Harry's legs, but Harry barely flinches. Interior souvenir shop dusk. Peter rifles through the rack of costumes. There's Wolverine, Silver Surfer, Daredevil, Spider-Man. He grabs it, pauses for an admiring tug on sleeve.
Ah, nice stitching.
Interior atrium ballroom dusk. Doc Ock lashes out with tentacle, snatches up a frightened waitress and holds her aloft, the claw of another tentacle snapping near her throat.
Give it to me.
I don't have it. You saw the FBI take it yourself.
It was a fake. You switched them and we both know it.
Ock hurls the waitress aside and sweeps up Stephanie, Harry's would-be bride, with his other tentacle. The crowd gasps. Stephanie screams.
Give it to me, Osborn.
I'm telling you the truth. I don't have it.
Ock drops Stephanie and his searching tentacle whips out and snakes around MJ's wrists. He sweeps her into the air and the laser drill pops out the other end of the tentacle and heads towards MJ's
Stop! Don't hurt her.
Ock stops and looks at him. Harry reaches into his suit coat, pulls a small pouch from his inner pocket and upends it. The image refractor falls into the palm of his hand. Ock's eyes widen. There it is. Stephanie's eyes narrow. Adios, creep.
Put her down.
Ock does, rather gently this time. The tentacle darts to Harry's palm and snatches up the refractor. But then a voice comes from above.
Hey, who invited the squid?
Everyone looks up, sees Spider-Man clinging to what remains of the framework of the atrium's roof.
Spider-Man, you're making a career of becoming a nuisance.
Some career. Vacation, no health insurance.
A tentacle shoots up at him, grabs hold of the girder Spidey is clinging to, and rips it out of the ceiling. Spider-Man lands on the floor of the atrium in a crouch, ready to do battle.
You're too late. It's too late for all of you. I have what I came for.
Spider-Man double takes and sees Ock holding the image refractor, which quickly disappears into his pocket.
And how exactly do you plan to get past me, Fishman?
I don't.
Ock suddenly drops to the ground right in front of Spider-Man, landing nimbly on his feet. But two of his tentacles remain in the air above him, and the claws on those retract suddenly and are replaced by four shiny metal blades which push out the ends of each tentacle. The blades blossom like cloverleaf and begin to whirl, to spin faster. And what are these? Those propeller drill things again? No, they're rotors. Dr. Ock's feet rise from the ground as the helicopter rotors reach running speed, and he lifts off, heading straight up and out of the atrium.
Wow, flying fish.
Spider-Man takes a deep breath, raises a wrist, and points it at the rapidly ascending figure of Doc Ock.
Webs, don't fail me now.
He twitches his finger and the web shoots out fast and strong and splats one of Ock's free tentacles. Spider-Man is immediately yanked off the feet and sails up and out of the atrium, shrieking with glee and waving to the kid whose milk he stole.
Thanks for the milk, kid.
Exterior Oscorp building night. Night has fallen. At the top of the Oscorp building, we see the shattered atrium roof and the strange figures rising up above it. Dr. Octopus and his bizarre helicopter tentacles and the web strand that dangles behind him, dragging his stowaway Spider-Man. In midair, Ock looks down, seeing Spider-Man. He curses as he begins to descend, dragged down by the extra weight.
You're pulling me down. You'll kill us both.
His one free tentacle whips through the air. A razor-sharp knife blade hums out and it slashes through the web strand. Spider-Man falls straight towards the street, but Doc Ock wasn't compensating for the loss of ballast, and he goes sailing upward and to the right, smashing into the side of the building, careening off to the other direction. Still falling, Spider-Man shoots out a web, then another, effortlessly web swinging just like the old days.
Oh, I am back.
Interior expensive apartment night. A dinner party is in progress in an expensive apartment on the upper floor. It's a nice evening, and the doors are thrown open to the balcony outside. The host holds forth in a calm, low-key manner.
Of course, we consider the suburbs, but then one loses touch with the city's vibrant street life.
Dr. Octopus crash lands on their patio. The dinner guests stop eating and stare in shock as Spider-Man somersaults up into the balcony beside Ock, and they begin slugging it out. The guests scream and leap from their chairs as an arid tentacle zips in from the balcony and smashes through the wall of the apartment. It withdraws, upending the dining room table. On the balcony, Doc Ock has plans for that table. He's got a tentacle wrapped around it, and here it comes, smashing through the open French doors and right towards Spider-Man, crunching his back. Spider-Man falls under the table, slamming into the railing. Doc Ock takes advantage of the opportunity to get his rotors going again and lifts off the balcony. Spider-Man rolls onto his back, raises both wrists, shoots two webs up at Doc Ock this time. The first one wraps around Ock's leg, and the second one goes straight into the spinning left rotor and gums it up. Spider-Man is hauled into the air again. He's yanked off the balcony and sails away across the city, dragged by the airborne Ock. In the apartment, the host turns to his guests amid the wreckage.
You see my point?
Exterior over the city night, a gummed up rotor is sputtering badly. Ock is veering out of control again. He's headed straight for enormous scaffolding up ahead. On the side of the building, getting new facade, however the frick it's pronounced. He's going to crash right into the side of it. Below, Spider-Man sees it coming. He lets out both webs and sails towards the scaffolding, shoots out a web, and swings slightly to the side for a softer landing. He hits the pipes hard, but he does a loop-the-loop around one and lands on his feet. He looks up near the top. He sees a flash of movement, and then all is still. Spidey rests, catches his breath.
Well, where are you?
Suddenly, the city seems very quiet up here, and it's dark in his scaffolding. Spider-Man starts to climb through the bars stealthily. He pauses, scans the bars around him. No sign of Ock.
Where?
He climbs up 2 more stories, climbs into the thick of the scaffolding, finds a good vantage point from which to search. Nothing he can see. Suddenly, we go in very tight to his face. He's worried as hell, and all of a sudden his spider sense kicks in. In spider sense, Spidey's point of view pulls out and around him, starting darting from bar to bar, checking each one. But there's no sign of Ock, not anywhere, just these bars all around him. Dozens of them, all identical, but wait! Not all identical. The two on either side of Spider-Man don't seem like the others. In fact, they're not. They're not at all. They're tentacles. Back in real time. We pull back fast and see what Spidey just saw. He perched in the middle of Ock's tentacles, which are suspending the sneaky scientist in the air right above him. Spidey leaps, but too late this time. One of the tentacles wraps around his waist and starts to squeeze. Spidey wriggles a wrist free, aims at Ock's head, and fires a web ball. It catches Ock right between the eyes. His neck snaps back. He loses his hold on Spider-Man, who lands on a platform in the scaffolding, gasping for air, but now the scaffolding is shaking. Doc Ock leaps to his feet, hears shouting from below. He looks down and sees 2 frightened construction workers cling to their work platforms 2 stories below them. He looks at Spider-Man, thinks of a horrible way to slow him down. Spider-Man follows Ock's line of vision and shouts to the workers.
Get down now.
The frightened workers start to climb down as fast as they can. Ock shoots out 2 tentacles and grabs hold of the corner holes of the scaffolding. He yanks them out with hideous metallic screech. The whole scaffolding groans and sways. Ock fires up his rotors again. The gummed up one clears itself and he takes off from the collapsing scaffolding. The construction workers are clamoring towards the ground, but they're not going to make it. Spidey looks up at Ock, can't chase him, but with this happening, he starts down towards the workers, moving as fast as he possibly can, which is incredibly fast. If you've never seen Spider-Man move through scaffolding, it is something. Tens across the board, even the Russian judge. Loop, leap, spin, twist, dive, loop again, one final leap, and he catches up to the construction workers, sweeping the first off of his feet and shouting to the second.
Grab hold.
The second worker just gets his fingers on Spidey's foot as he sweeps past. Falling Spider-Man shoots out a web and swings away from the scaffolding in a neat arc just before the tower of the pipes collapse behind them. Exterior train tracks night. Down in the meat packing district, there's a section of train line that runs on elevated tracks. A subway train rattles down those tracks and we race along on top of it. A sound of rotors come from above and a pair of feet descend onto the train as Doc Ock comes in for a landing and a free ride. His tentacles grab hold of the side of the train and anchor him there. Exterior over the city night, we're sailing above the city as those long, unmistakable arcs that can only mean one thing. Where's Spider-Man? He's making his way south and west across Broadway, down 7th Avenue, cutting over through Chelsea, and then down 8th Avenue, 8th against the traffic. But what the hell? He's above all that, and he's never moved this fast. South of the 14th, now we see the elevated train up ahead, racing on its tracks above the cobblestone streets and old factory buildings in the meatpacking district. Closer, closer, and my goodness, this has all been one shot, hasn't it? Isn't that remarkable? How do they do that? And then Spider-Man's right over the train, and there's Doc Ock up ahead, holding on for dear life, and Spider-Man lets go of his web and smacks into Doc's back, tackling him on top of the speeding train. They land hard on the slack roof and grapple. In the distance, a police helicopter begins to pursue them. Ock throws Spider-Man off. Spidey lands on his back of the roof of the train. He looks up, sees the sharp end of tentacles racing right at him. He rolls to the last second, and the tentacle crunches through the roof of the subway car. Interior train car night. The tentacle rips through the shrieking metal and into the crowded train. Subway riders scream and leap out of the way. Now another tentacle rips through, and another and another. They're like depth charges here in the subway car. Exterior on top of the train night, Spider-Man rolls again and again to avoid the deadly tentacles aimed at him. At first break in the assault, he flips off his back and lands on his feet, fists up, ready to fight. But Ock is suddenly gone. Spider-Man looks ahead and sees why. The short stretch of elevated track run is over, and the train is diving back into the subway tunnel. Spider-Man leaps at the last second, exterior fire escape night, and lands on a nearby fire escape as the train disappears back underground. He looks around frantically. Where's Doc Ock? Hearing a crunch somewhere nearby, Spider-Man scampers up the side of the building he's on. When his line of vision clears, he sees it just a few blocks away, it being a tall building at the edge of Battery Park. Exterior transatlantic building night with huge letters on the side that say Transatlantic. Dr. Octopus is climbing up the side of the building. No time for niceties like elevators. We race up ahead of him, up 30 floors, past a gigantic clock face that reads 9 p.m. exactly, all the way up to the top of the building. Exterior transatlantic building roof night. On the roof is a helipad. On the helipad is a real helicopter. Blades whirling, ready to take off, and beside it is the foreign man who made the deal with Octavius, set to go. The foreign man jumps up as a tentacle claw over the edge of the building, then another and another. Dr. Octopus flips himself neatly up over the edge of the building and lands on the roof. The foreign man, who hasn't seen this aspect of Octavius' personality before, stands there horrified. Ock races across the roof as the building towards the helicopter, his cloak billowing in the prop wash. The foreign man leaps into the open cargo door of the copter. Ock is right behind him. He steps inside. He's made it. The helicopter starts to lift off the ground, but before it's 3 feet off the ground, flip! Doc Ock flies backwards, yanked right out the open door of the helicopter, crunches flat on his back of the roof of the building. Spider-Man stands at the edge, shoots another web, but this one wraps around two of the bad doctor's tentacles, binding them together. In the sky, the police helicopter that starts pursuing them on the train has caught up now. Speaker blares.
On the roof, power down, and step away from the helicopter.
Instead, the pilot leans out and starts firing at the police helicopter. The foreign man looks at Doc Ock engaged in battle with Spider-Man and makes a decision.
Get us out of here.
Like, what about?
Leave him. Go. Go.
Jinkies! Doc Ock snaps Spider-Man's web as if it were string and he leaps to his feet.
Your webs are useless.
2 tentacles slither out. One wraps around Spidey's torso, the other around his legs. They lift him up into the air, start giving him a full body Indian rub. One tentacle twisting in one direction, the other in the opposite. Spidey groans in agony. He's being crushed and twisted to the tentacles around his torso contract like a boa constrictor. We hear 2 ribs splinter and crack. Ow.
You don't have a chance against me.
Actually, that's a very good point. And Spider-Man knows it. He twists around, being desperate. His eyes fall on something on the far side of the roof. It's the large metal power shed, probably the inputs for the whole building. Huge 220-volt cables running into it and a big red danger 220-volt sign in the front. He looks to the left of it and sees a large spool of heavy copper cable. He looks to the right, sees a square metal box, a rooftop air conditioning unit. He gets an idea. Meanwhile, the foreign man's helicopter starts to lift off. Ock turns his head, sees his escape vehicle escaping without him. He telescopes out one of his 2 free tentacles and clamps onto its skin. The helicopter strains, held there by the tentacle. Spider-Man strains against Doc Ock's tentacles, but it's no use. They're too powerful for him to break out of. Flip! The web strand splats into the front of the power shed and rips its cover off, revealing the thick yellow cables plugged into the circuit board. The police helicopter dips lower. A marksman leans out with a rifle and fires at Doc Ock, who immediately drops Spider-Man and sets his tentacles whirling around in front of him to deflect the bullets. Spider-Man falls to the rooftop, pushed over the spool of the heavy electrical cable, rolling it across the rooftop to unspooling a long length of wire before it slams into the metal air conditioning unit. Clip! The end of the other tentacle clamps into the police helicopter skid, shaking it, disrupting marksman's aim. Now both helicopters are hovering in place, held by Doc Ock's tentacles, but he still has 2 free. He turns searching for Spider-Man. The air conditioning unit is now half wrapped in heavy electrical cable. Spider-Man stands on top of it, twirling the cable lasso, wrapping it around and around and around the metal box. What does he think he's doing?
What do you think you're doing?
Well, that's what I said. Ock's 2 free tentacles whiz through the air. They slice at the space where Spider-Man was perched. He leaps, twists, ducks, parries, avoids their blows until the air conditioning unit is completely wrapped. But then a tentacle catches Spider-Man hard across the chest. He goes flying and smashes in the side of the electrical shed, its cable sparking and burning him.
In spite of everything you can do you know what you are compared to me? Ordinary.
Spidey rips 2 of the yellow 220-volt cables from the power shed. A huge shower of sparks fly at him, setting him partially ablaze. He shouts in pain, but endures. The flames singe halfway up his mask and char the rest of him. Doc Ock cracks the whip with him, this time sending him sailing into the middle of the roof. But Spidey still holds on to these 2 cables, holding on for dear life as they rip free from the power shed, current still coursing through them.
But I am knowledge itself. I am inevitable, Spider-Man.
Spider crawls to the air conditioning unit, still holding both cables.
To try to stop me, to try to stop the sun from coming up.
He wraps a tentacle around Spider-Man's waist, sweeping him off the ground and holding him upside down over the air conditioning unit. Ock still holds the 2 choppers with 2 of his tentacles, Spider-Man upside down with the other. But the choppers are pushing it hard, trying to pull away, causing Doc Ock's tentacles to telescope out further and further.
There is nothing so powerful as an idea whose time has come.
Ock's 1 free tentacle now has a small spinning circular saw at the end of it. He draws it towards Spider-Man's throat.
And I am that idea.
Spider-Man stretches down towards the air conditioning unit, pulling the sparking cables with him. He's 6 inches away, then 3. The police helicopter pulls its tentacles out as far as it can possibly go and strains hard. The saw draws closer.
I am Galileo.
Spidey smacks 1 cable into the left side of the trussed-up air conditioner unit. The foreign man pulls its tentacle out to its maximum extension and strains hard too. The saw draws closer.
I am Da Vinci.
Spider-Man smacks the other cable into the right side of the air conditioning unit. Immediately, electrical current pours into the metal frame. Blue lightning-like flashes whiz around and around the coiled cable.
I'm Thomas Edison.
Actually, you're an electromagnet.
Good point. Smack, clink, chunk, everything made of metal within 10 feet of the air conditioning unit is suddenly and powerfully sucked into it, including the tentacle holding Spider-Man and the tentacle with the saw at the end of it. Spider-Man released from its grip, falls to the ground, and rolls for cover.
What have you done?
Doc Ock himself is pulled in by the metal corset around his midsection. He slams up against the air conditioning, and the blue lightning flashes whips around him now, shooting at the ends of his other two tentacles and to the skids of the choppers. His claws still clamped to their skids, flashing with blue electric current.
The claws. I can't let go.
Well, that's a bummer because the helicopters are getting some good pull now, and they lift Doc Ock right off the ground, pulling him as far away from the air conditioning unit as he will go. Now he's got a real problem. The two tentacles in the air conditioning unit are still held fast by the electromagnetic force. The blue electric current still pours right through him, and the claws on the helicopter skid hold fast. Doc Ock is pulled and pulled and pulled and pulled, all four tentacles yanked in different directions. He's lifted right off the ground over the roof. Oh my God, this guy is about to be quartered, drawn and quartered. Spider-Man turns away, can't bear to watch as the helicopters fly away, life tentacles dangling from their skids. The two tentacles from the air conditioning units drop uselessly to the ground, and Doc Ock falls with a thud to the roof of the building, still alive, still wrapped in his now limbless metal corset. No longer Dr. Octopus. Do we call him Dr. Non-Octopus now? I don't know. Spider-Man races over to the Otto Octavius groaning body, grabs him by the collar, and pulls him face half mast face. Well, that's a mouthful.
Please. Don't kill me.
You've done enough killing for both of us.
Reaches in the pocket of Octavius's coat and takes the image refractor from it.
You're going to jail, Octavius. I'm going to make sure you stay there forever.
The roof door bangs open and policemen swarm out, guns drawn.
And you know what for?
He pulls Octavius close and hisses into his ear.
For the murder of Richard and Mary Parker.
Octavius' eyes pop wide open. How did Spider-Man know that? Cops draw their weapons and shout to everyone freeze, but this is traditionally where Spider-Man leaves and the paperwork to them. Tonight is no different. 3 quick handsprings and he's all the way across the roof, right over their heads, sailing right off the edge of the building and swinging away into the twinkling canyons of Manhattan. Cut to exterior TV studio day. A door on the side of the building in Midtown reads, "Performers only." It opens and MJ steps out, smiling, laughing, saying goodbye to friends. She's in a good mood. She heads off down the sidewalk, then stops, looking straight at us.
So, you are alive.
Peter stands in the sidewalk where he's waiting for her.
You okay?
Oh, I'm fine. I've been grabbed by men before. Never quite like that, but
I hear the wedding's off.
yeah, well, Stephanie was a little, irritated. Can't say I blame her.
I guess Harry's still got a thing for you.
I guess he does. That all you came to say?
Peter looks up at her, summoning his nerve.
No, I was just on my way to Gwen's.
Oh.
And I suddenly realized my feet weren't taking me there. They were taking me here instead.
He steps forward.
I never got a chance to tell you what I wanted to. Well, I've had those chances, but I've never taken them. Now I want to. I want to tell you.
Peter.
No, let me say it. I've waited too long. I've been desperate.
Peter, stop.
I've stopped the words so many times. They fight to get out, but I never let them, and it's killing me, MJ. It's eating me alive. That's what happens when you turn it all back inside, isn't it? MJ,
Don't tell me you love me. Don't dare tell me that.
What?
It's too late, Pete.
I don't understand.
She grabs him, pulls him to her, and holds him as tightly as she possibly can.
I love you, Peter, and I always will. But I don't trust you.
MJ,
Have you been honest with me? I don't want to look at you, Peter, because I don't want to see your face when you lie to me.
I don't know what to say.
Then please don't say anything. Tell me the truth or don't tell me anything at all. I love you, Peter Parker. I love your stupid face, and I would do anything to be with you. Anything except to live with secrets. I will never, ever do that again.
He tries again to pull back, but she won't let him. We're looking at their faces over one another's shoulders.
Will you tell me?
Peter, in agony, fakes it.
Tell you what,
You know.
MJ,
Will you tell me?
Peter closes his eyes.
I can't.
MJ closes her eyes too.
I love you, MJ.
I know.
She disentangles herself from him and walks away down the street, wiping away tears but holding her head upright. MJ's face slowly dissolves too. Interior Stacy apartment day. Gwen, Stacy's face happier, welcoming as she answers the door to her family's apartment and brings Peter inside, giving him a soft kiss and pulling him into a tender embrace. Over her shoulder, Peter closes his eyes in sweet agony, holding her and thinking of another. Peter's face slowly dissolves too. Exterior Central Park, great long day. MJ's face now over the shoulder of Eric, the actor from the soap, as he embraces her. Eric pulls away, kisses her softly on the mouth. They're on a blanket in the great lawn on a gorgeous sunny day. MJ sits back, gives Eric a friendly smile, and puts on a pair of dark sunglasses. As Eric goes back to the book he was reading, we go in tight on MJ. We can't see her eyes, can't tell what she's thinking in those sunglasses, until a single tear escapes from behind them and rolls down her soft cheek. Cut to interior Oscorp lab night. Everything's gone green. Brilliant phosphorescent green, and there's a very large human eye looking at us through the green. Pulling back slowly, we realize we were looking through a glowing greenish liquid in a test tube, and the eye peering into it is Harry Osborn's. The look of determination in Harry's face is downright horrifying. His face is hard and lined, his jaw clamped shut, his brows heavy. We've seen that face before. It's his father's face. He's in the basement of the Oscorp labs alone late at night. He steps up to the bank of equipment, uncaps the test tube, and pours the greenish liquid into an open end of a network of tubes, referring to a crumpled notebook on the lab bench in front of him, filled with his father's jottings. He flicks a series of switches in a certain order. The greenish liquid begins to bubble and ooze, to whip through a series of connecting tubes, turning into a green gas by the time it reaches the end. A low hissing rises up behind him. Harry turns. A glass-enclosed chamber is behind him, slowly filling with waves of green gas. Both the equipment and the gas chamber look older, unused, fallen into disrepair. Harry steps over to it, puts his hand on the door panel, pauses, and pushes it. The door hisses open. Inside the tank, Harry steps inside. The gas is just creeping into the chamber from the vents at its corners. It's rising slowly off the floor at waist level. Harry goes into a vertical table at the center of the room, straps himself in. The gas rises. It's to his chest now. Harry looks down, calmly watches his approach. It's at his neck now.
What I do,
The gas oozes over his face.
I do for my father.
Harry opens his mouth and gulps an enormous mouthful of the green gas. The stuff pours out of the vents now. It fills the room entirely. We can't even see Harry anymore, just that hideous green gas. And out of the center of the cloud of gas, we hear a loud sound, a loud and clear, bone-chilling, the hideous cackle of the Green Goblin. Cut to exterior Empire State Building day. We're high above the city, looking at the skyline from the highest point on the islands, the very tip top of the Empire State Building. Spider-Man's voiceover returns.
My parents were brilliant scientists. They created something that had more power than I ever imagined. Power they thought they could never control.
The focus shifts from the skyline to very close in front of us, and we're looking at the shiny gold cupola, the one we saw near the beginning. A red and blue gloved hand reaches in and lifts the cupola delicately.
I know the feeling, but I'm trying. I'm trying real hard.
Spider-Man's other hand comes in, holding the glistening image refractor, the tiny, brilliant invention that has caused so much trouble.
And as long as I live, I'll never stop trying again.
He puts the refractor back inside the hollowed out place inside the top of the pole and snaps the cover back into it securely.
Who was I? I was the son of Richard and Mary Parker.
Spider-Man straightens, stands balanced on the very tip top of that flagpole, king of the hill, defying anyone who even try take him on.
The name they gave me was Peter Parker.
He raises his arms and swan dives off the top of the building.
The name I gave myself.
He knives towards the street, a perfect dive, 1,000 feet straight down at the pavement. But of course, not all the way, because at the very last minute, he shoots out a web and rides its graceful arc to the rooftops again.
Is Spider-Man.
Fade out, the end.
Okie dokie. That was a hell of a fun reading, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. We'll catch you at the next one.